HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
This is HCAM TV.
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
Okay. So it is 6 and we do have a quorum. So I think we might as well open and then we can go into our executive session. Everyone's ready? Okay. Okay, so good evening. This is Amy Ritterbusch, a Select Board Chair, and this is the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Since this is a remote meeting, as a preliminary matter, let me confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Jo Lafreniere?
Present.
Irfan Nasrullah? Irfan, can you hear? The attendees needs to be admitted.
I'm present, Amy. It's Muriel.
Okay, and Irfan is present and we heard him earlier, but now we can't hear him. Okay, well, we wait for Irfan. And Shahidul, I don't see him on the waiting list to be admitted, so I think he's not here yet. Okay, and then for the okay, staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Norman Kamalo? I don't think he's here yet. Lane Lazarus?
Here.
Okay. Irfan, do you want to try it one more time? Can you?
I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay. Then I will just note for the audience, we are going into executive session first, and then when we come back, we'll do public comment. But if you'd like to speak at public comment when we come back, you'll have to notify us in advance by either raising your hand, which you can do on the Zoom app, or if you're on the phone, you can dial, I believe, *9 to raise your hand. So when we get back, we will call on people whose hands are raised. Okay, and then we would need a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Okay, pursuant to Mass General Law, I know, again, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to police, fire, and communications union, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Also, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A, Purpose 2, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, the town manager and police chief. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, lease, sale, or value of real estate in relation to properties in the vicinity of Town Hall, the janitor property, 0 Spring Street, 0 West Main Street, and then 70, let's see, and blocked and rear west lot B rear West Main Street, and 3 contiguous parcels on College Street, totaling 20.74 acres, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. And also to approve executive session minutes, and to allow Norma Kamalo and Elaine Lazarus to participate in the executive session, and to reconvene an open session at the conclusion of the executive session. So roll call vote to, in a second.
Second.
Okay, and then roll call vote.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes. And it looks like Mary Jo already exited to the to the executive session. Okay, so we'll be right back. Thank you. Well, in about a half an hour. Okay, we have 3 select board members. We're waiting for 2 more.
It's always a personal victory when I'm not the last. Shahadul, you look good. It's good to see you. How are you feeling?
Good, good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, good to see you as well. Good to see you all. And happy to be here.
Okay, so now we're just waiting for Irfan. Okay, I see him in the attendees, so he's gonna get promoted. Panelist. Okay.
All right.
Okay, we don't have Norman yet, but we can probably start the beginning part and he'll be joining shortly. Okay. Oh, so confirm with Bob from HCAM, we're live on the audio now?
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
All right, thank you. Okay, meeting script again. Okay, good evening. My name is Amy Rodebush, and the Select Board is now returning from executive session. Let's see. And then, so I'm going to also reconfirm that everyone can hear me and that all members are present. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Jo Lafreniere.
Present.
Irfan Nasrullah.
Affirmative.
Muriel Kramer.
Muriel Kramer here.
Shahidul Manan.
Shahidul Manan present.
Okay, great. Okay, good evening. This open meeting of the Select Board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. For this meeting, the Select Board is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. In addition, the meeting may be broadcast by HCAM through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference, or all attendees, and accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the meeting. Each vote in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before I do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite board members to provide further comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not talking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in dialogue with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. If there are several hands raised, the chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. And once the chair has a list of public commenters, I will call on each by name and afford 2 minutes for any comments. All right, now the first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice. Okay. Okay, and then let's see. And then now we're at the public forum. So if there are any members of the public who wish to speak, please raise the raise hand feature of Zoom. Yep.
Don't you have an announcement from the executive session first?
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. So right before public comment, I just I always wanted to briefly announce that the Select Board has concluded negotiations and signed contracts with the police chief and the police union. And so those will be signed and then available for the public. All right, and then the next item, public comment. Okay, so if you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature of Zoom or I think it's *9 if you're calling in on your phone. Identify yourself by name and address, and then you'll have 2 minutes for your comment. And I will work with the IT department to let everybody speak. So, okay, I see at the moment one hand raised. So that's all I see is just the one. Okay, so if we could liven up Sitharaman Gansian. Okay.
Do you all hear me?
We can, yes. Please go ahead. State your name and address.
This is Sitharaman Ganesan. I live at 1 Revolutionary Way, apartment number 106, Hopkinton, MA 01748. This is regarding noise pollution. It appears the gun clubs in Hopkinton, Massachusetts violate state law, MGL Chapter 111, Section 31C and 122. Having said, it appears Hopkinton town employees, police officer in particular, go to these gun facilities and get trained. Knowingly or unknowingly, they could be violating the above state law that I mentioned, the state law just I specified. So my request to the chief Hopkinton police officer would be, I'm making this request through select board. I want 3 years report from the chief police officer. How many police officers go to these gun clubs? And I want to know how many gunshots they fire every year. Last 3 years, how many gunshots they fired? And how much, if the town is paying for these, I would like to know per gunshot how much it costs the taxpayers. If we can put this report out there for public to view, that'll be great. It's a great information to have. And another request that I would like to make to the town of Hopkinton is, or the select board or the health board, town of Hopkinton should not be the hub for the police officers or any individuals to get trained. There are 4 clubs. God knows how many more clubs we are going to have, and it's creating noise pollution. Basic need of life is a quiet environment. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then town staff, can you recommend who Sitharaman should direct that question to? The town clerk? Or can we forward it to the town clerk? Would that be the responsible person?
In fact, we can, through the chair, we can ask the resident to direct their question to the town manager's office. We will distribute it to the appropriate town departments.
Okay, and I believe he's emailed us, so so if you have any questions, you can reply to his email and get the information. Okay. Now I don't think I see any other hands raised at this time. So I think we are done with public comment. Okay, so the next item is the consent agenda. The select board will consider the following consent agenda: approve the minutes of the February 28th, 2023 meeting, approve the following marathon fund requests, which have been recommended by the Marathon Fund Committee: $32.20 for the front, or $3,520 for the Friends of Hopkinton Family Day, which will be used for portable restrooms and a Magic World inflatables. And then $950 for the Hopkinton High School Post-Prom Committee to be used for a hypnotist magician at the post-prom party. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then just some brief discussion, and this relates to our later agenda topic on ADA accessibility. I noticed the Marathon Fund Committee requests are kind of blurry scans that definitely wouldn't be complying with ADA accessibility rules. They couldn't be read aloud with a screen reader. So I don't know if we could help the Marathon Fund Committee submit them in a easier to read format that would be accessible going forward. But otherwise, that sounds great. We're happy to take a roll call vote.
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Kaiser Manan, yes.
Bureau Kramer, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Through the chair. It's
Yes.
usually in this place that I would bring up something, but I want to offer my condolences and the board's condolences to the family of Roy Weatherby. Roy Weatherby was the town accountant for this town for many, many years. He was here when I first came to work for the town, and his first wife, Linda, was very instrumental in the planning, and she worked for him. And then she worked for the building inspector's office for many years, and they're both gone now. So I just want to mention they were good town employees for a long time.
Thank you. Okay, and the next item on the agenda, we are now at 6:45, so we can open the public hearing for the Comcast license renewal. So I would request a motion to call the public hearing to order. The Select Board is the cable television licensing authority under Mass General Law, Chapter 166A, Section 1, is conducting the cable television license renewal proceedings regarding Comcast of Massachusetts. The public is invited to comment on the renewal. So do you need a motion to open the public hearing? I think.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Ritterbush, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Kaiser Manan, yes.
Bureau Kramer, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes. Okay. And then, so now we will take, there's a lot of information on this in our packet, and we will also take questions and comments from the public. I understand Jim Cousins from HCAM may wish to make a public comment.
I would, thank you.
In fact, if I may.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim. This has been a very long process. Bill August, who's the special counsel who has helped us throughout the process, is here to make the opening remarks. And following Bill August will be Jim Cousins. And then after Jim Cousins, we'll take questions from the board as well as from the public. I thought it was important that we have Jim participate in the process because HCAM is the avenue through which we realize the aspirations of this contract.
Okay, so can we live that Bill August, did you say?
Yes, please, with your permission.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Bill, go ahead and unmute yourself and then you can speak.
I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Bill August here. Good to see you. Thank you. I believe this is the fourth renewal license and fourth time I've represented Hopkinton. So I feel like an honorary resident because I've worked with the town for over 15, 20 years on the Verizon and the Comcast renewals and on predecessor to Comcast. 99% of my work is specializing in just representing municipalities in cable licensing and regulation. This is a very strong license. I'm very confident about that. And I worked very closely with Jim Cousins, who has reviewed it in its entirety. The main negotiable areas that consume the most energy and time are the annual payments and the capital payments and the local channels. In all of those areas, Hopkinton is continuing its very strong history of having a support for a vibrant level of local programming, studio, and channels. So in terms of the annual payment, which is the lion's share of cable company support for local facilities, which are of increasing importance these days. I won't get into that, but they just continue to grow. in terms of importance and as community institutions. Hopkinton will be receiving the maximum allowed by federal law, which is 5% of gross annual revenues, and that from Comcast, and that matches the Verizon commitment. So they'll be on a level playing field on that. Above and beyond the annual funding, the municipality, through the issuing authority, is able to negotiate an equipment, really a capital fund for above and beyond the annual 5%. The 5% is considered the operating budget for regular operations, and there's a capital equipment fund. It's at two revenue streams. One is fixed payments of equal to $96,500 above the 5%, and that's payable at $9,650 per year for 10 years, totaling $96,500. One footnote: I not only work closely with Jim. I should note I work very closely with Norm, even more closely, and Norm has been available at every twist and turn, every comma, every question, every number, as has Jim. So it was really a team effort. In addition to the $96,500, fixed amounts, there's a secondary capital equipment funding stream, the same as under the current expiring Comcast license, equal to 1/3 of 1% of their annual gross revenues. So some are fixed dollar amounts for the capital and equipment, and some are at the 0.33%, and that's payable to the town. Something new and different, and really a boon to Hopkinton. It's never had it before, and I consider it like almost like a legacy of this license in terms of technologically moving forward for your local infrastructure. This will be the first ever Comcast license where they agreed to provide one of the 3 PEG access channels in high definition. So that would make it more competitive with the commercial channels where they've been trending towards high definition for a while. And at the time of the upgrade to high definition, should the town, at the behest of the Access Corporation, invoke Comcast's requirement to implement it within 24 months of the effective date, the company also agreed, because they only do one high definition of the 3. If you go around to all the towns, they don't upgrade all 3 standard definition to 3 HD. Those towns who know about it can get the 1 HD. A lot of towns don't know about it. Another thing a lot of towns do not get, but we know about because I'm like in the renewal trenches every day, is they will also upgrade the other 2 local channels from standard definition to a higher level of resolution at that 24-month period after the request from the town, to a higher level called SDI, Standard Digital Serial Digital Interface. So you're really getting your 3 local channels upgraded. And that's really the technology of the system for your local information. So that's important. Of course, it's a non-exclusive license. That's why Verizon is here, and anyone else theoretically could come and compete. I like to mention that for the public, because a lot of people out there think, oh, wow, these towns, they only have 2 cable companies or 1 cable company. They must be signing these special deals. This is totally non-exclusive, explicitly in the license to, anyone that would come along. But the market is such that it's rare for a third company to come. Although RCN sometimes does bid to be a third provider, and the technology is constantly changing. Everything's changing, so you don't know what companies might be willing to apply for. But if someone did come along, like some venture capital type of entity that wanted to compete in the cable space, your license permits that. Those are like the main, like tangible financial and technology improvements and strengths of the document, but it's a very long document with extremely well vetted provisions on all the license administration terms and conditions in terms of reporting and their responsibility to reply to requests, insurance provisions with like $5 million umbrella, total indemnification of the town for anything and everything that might arise from acts or omissions under the license.
I think we would like to go ahead and get comments from staff and Mr. Cousins too.
Okay, so it's a good license. It's also, and I'll just close with this. They used our draft. We did not use their draft. And this is a draft that is based on precedents that have been vetted by, many towns. So and they know it, and they know that it's strong from a municipal perspective, but it's something they agreed to elsewhere. So we started at a good point, and I feel good about it. It's good. And as I know the town does.
Thank you for working on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Jim, did you have a comment that you'd like to make?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Basically, I know you are the people who are going to be signing.
You have to introduce yourself. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Cousins. I am the station director at HCAM. And I am here mainly because you all are the ones who will be signing this license. And as Bill said, it's a very long thing. I just wanted to tell you from my perspective, it is a good contract. In all my time here, Norman has been really passionate about the value of community TV. And Bill has been working on this for 30 years. I think I've known him when I was in Westboro. And a lot of this stuff is like boilerplate and you can't really change it. But we do have, as he said, the maximum. We can't ask for more than 5%, and we're getting that. In addition to that, we're also getting capital money to keep us up to date. The HT channel, it is unbelievable that we're still having this conversation between SD and HD in 2023, but that's the way the cable companies are working. I do think that this license is really good. It's the best we're going to get, and I think it's good for our community. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment? I don't see any hand raised, so we can go to town staff, and if any members of the public want to speak, we can do that after. Norma, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, 2 quick points. I want to emphasize what is in front of you is a result of 2 things. One, the town did hold a public hearing at which we had, I believe, more than 15 representations from different entities, interested individuals who gave us very valuable comments and informed some of the unique aspects of this contract. And then last but not least, I also want to thank the town's IT department. They were very instrumental in working alongside Jim Cousins, Bill August, and myself in identifying some of the infrastructure needs on the town side and how best that infrastructure's improvement is tied to HCAM. And then also, I want to thank Vasuda. Vasuda has been instrumental in receiving all the information and working alongside me and Bill in getting us ready for this meeting. Goes without saying that this meeting would not have been possible also without the cooperation of the town clerk's department. They became the holding office for all the public records that pertain to this hearing. And by the way, the public hearing is a public record. We have it on video, we have it on transcript, and we'll make it available to the public.
Gosh, I hope it's on video if it's about HCAM. That's great. There's no members of the public with hands raised, it doesn't look like. So do select board members have any questions or comments about the Comcast contract?
I have one small procedural footnote, which is that while the document is in a form for like a motion for approval, should that be the pleasure of the board, I have a correction to the table, clerical correction to the table of contents that I have to make. So I will be substituting for and also a header in an exhibit, and one correction. And I ran it by, and so it's good. It's informed for final action. You can vote on it, but in terms of the actual signing, which you can't do tonight anyhow, I will be substituting a slightly clerically scrubbed version just for technical change. No substitute. Okay.
Okay. All right. Do board members have any questions or comments?
Through the
I'm
chair,
all set.
quick question. Through the
Go
chair,
ahead, Shaidu.
quick question. Yeah. First off, thanks, Bill, Jim, Norman, and Vasudha, everyone for working on this. This is great that it's closing in to the final contract. I was wondering, how long is this contract gonna be valid for once we sign it today?
This has a 10-year term, and while some people have a 10-year term and 10-year term.
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole litany of reasons why longer is better, even though you might think it's better to get another bite at the apple in 5 years instead of 10. Historically, it's not, because the trends have been that each time we go to renewal, the companies are such that they give less. Each year they chip away. So we want to lock them in. It's like signing up Michael Jordan. You want to get him on a 5-year contract, not a 2-year contract or something like that, because it gets worse. It doesn't get better with this industry in terms of the renewals.
Got it.
Okay. And Irfan, did you say you had a question as well?
No, I was just saying I'm all set.
Okay. Mary Jo, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I just, I love having my HCAM, so I want the contract, yes.
Okay. Muriel, did you have any questions or comments?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. And I will just add that I so appreciate HCAM recording all our government meetings and making them easily accessible to the public. I mean, I use it all the time and I really appreciate it. And it is Sunshine Week, which is Government Transparency Week. And so you really help us with that, which we really appreciate. All right. So
Madam
then
Chair,
I think we need,
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
okay. Need a second and a roll call vote. So
Mary Jo
yes.
Lafreniere, yes.
Right. Yep. And then Muriel,
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Shaidu,
Manan, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes. Okay. And then we need a motion. Finding that the
Madam
cable
Chair-
franchise renewal proposal. Oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Do you want to read
finding
it
that
off the motions?
Yeah. Madam Chair, finding that the cable franchise renewal proposal of Comcast Cable Communications Management, LLC, reasonably meets the franchise and cable-related renewal needs and interests of the public of the town of Hopkinton, of the public and the town of Hopkinton, and finding that Comcast's financial and technical qualifications and support for local programming channels, facilities, and services are reasonable to meet town cable franchise needs. I move that the select board, as statutory cable license issuing authority for the town, vote to accept and approve the renewal license agreement with Comcast effective November 15, 2023, and execute the renewal license.
Second that.
And do we need to add, there will be some clerical corrections, including the clerical corrections as described? I don't know.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
Okay. And I think we had a second, so we need a roll call vote now. So Irfan,
Irfan Nasrallah, yes.
Mary Jo,
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel,
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Shaidu,
Manan, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes. Okay. And then I've forgotten, I've not been in the habit of the remote meetings for so long that it does help the public if we identify our names each time. So anyway.
Right.
Okay.
I also have, when you're ready, I have to make one other statement for the record also.
Okay.
briefly.
Go for it.
Okay. A thank you is in order to Comcast because their negotiation team isn't, there are certain things they just cannot do under their corporate directives, but their negotiations team is truly accessible and responsible and fair-minded. And I just want to state that so the town is aware of that. They are available through the folks we worked with to be responsive to the communities in terms of these kinds of issues.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, and then I think the next item on our agenda is employee appointments. The select board will consider confirming the town manager's appointment of Diane Hendrickson as the town treasurer collector and Allison Keeney as the circulation and technical services supervisor at the library. So I think we have livened them up, and I think Kristen from HR is here as well. So to begin, Norman, did you want to give us an introduction?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, very, very pleased by the two appointments that are in front of the board tonight that I'm respectfully requesting you affirm. Beginning with the town treasurer, here's why this is a beautiful story. This will be an internal promotion. Diane has been with the town of Hopkinton for 16 plus years, starting as the interdepartmental secretary for the public schools, then worked as the administrative assistant for 5 years, and has been our assistant treasurer for 11 years. She is a certified assistant treasurer, a certified assistant collector, holds a Bachelor of Science Business Administration degree. The first round of interviews included Tim O'Leary, John Neese, Elizabeth Rook, Scott Van Ralten, Kristen Merrill, and then the second round of interviews included Tim O'Leary, Elaine Lazarus, William Miller, John Westerlin, Maria Casey. I am so pleased that Diane, who has been with the town for a long time as an assistant, has the opportunity to be promoted to the town treasurer collector position with the support of the board. And Tim O'Leary, HR, Christine Merrill, they are available to add any comments and answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay. Well, I usually say welcome to people, Diane, but you've been here a long time, so I don't need to say that. But I read through your resume and everything looks wonderful. So I don't think I particularly have any questions or comments. Do other board members have any questions or comments? And I'll start with Irfan.
No questions, but I do have a few comments. I just want to say it is fantastic that to see people who've been working with the town continue working with the town and move up. And it's thrilling for me to see that you have now moved your way all the way up to the town treasurer, and with the recommendations of town staff. What else can we say? Congratulations! I think it's fantastic.
Okay, Mary Jo, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Irfan said. And I work at the town hall quite frequently, and Diane is in the other office, and then with the assessors and the town clerk. And I watched her work all these years. And in fact, I was in the assessor's office when I think Diane first came on board. And I'm just thrilled that you were able to get promoted to this job. And you're wonderful. So I'm not even going to say good luck or anything like that, because you'll do a good job. I know you will.
Thank you.
Okay. Muriel, did you have any questions or comments?
I can hardly add on that, but it is always great to see people stay and thrive and grow in the town. So thank you very much for your service.
Okay. Shahidul?
Yeah, along the same line, I think I'd echo the same as everyone. Thank you for your wonderful service for so long, and it's great to have your talented work with us to be continued at a leadership level. You have earned it, and it's great to have your institutional knowledge and all the wonderful experience that you have. We are lucky to have you. And congratulations. Welcome on your new role. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Diane?
I guess I just thank you for the opportunity to take the job, and thank you for all the support I have in the finance department. Tim O'Leary, the finance director, and the assessors and the accountants and the 2 administrative assistants and the payroll manager, all are very supportive and will help me do my job. And we work good as a team. So I'm very pleased to take the job and again, to work with a great team. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion then to confirm the town manager's appointment of Diane to the position of town's treasurer.
Second.
I don't think we had a motion.
I'm sorry. I thought that was a motion.
I move to, Madam Chair, I move to confirm the town manager's appointment of Diane Hendrickson as the town's treasurer collector.
Second.
Okay, and then a roll call vote. Irfan?
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Shaidul?
Eidelman, yes.
And Amy Roderbush, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and the next person is Allison Keeney. So we can live or she's here. Yep. Okay. And so Norman, did you want to give an introduction to Allison?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Allison, welcome. This is another opportunity for us to celebrate. The town has made a commitment to ensuring high quality library services for the community, beginning first with the expansion of the library. Secondly, requesting directly that we have expanded hours to allow townspeople to access the library 7 days a week. And as part of that process, working together with the library team, the trustees, and town meeting, we created additional positions and am pleased to share that the request before you tonight is our first attempt to fill the circulation and technical services supervisor position. This is a position that works under the direction of the library director, focusing specifically on developing, planning, organizing, directing, and evaluating activities, operations, and expenditures of the Circulation and Technical Services Division. Who is Allison Kinney? She has extensive experience in library services, having worked for the town of Dover for 7 years as the head of circulation. And she has been in the head of circulation position for 3 years and worked as a library assistant for 4 years. She also worked for Stonehill College Library for 4 years, Boyden Library Foxborough for 2 years, and Wheaton College Library for 2 years. She holds a master's degree in library science, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in History. References that we spoke with pointed out the following. She has excellent ideas and has the skill and the ability to implement those great ideas. We're really looking for somebody to execute the wonderful goals and strategic directions that have been identified by the community for the library. She was described as a confident decision maker who excels at collaboration. She gathers information, listens carefully and actively to ideas, and then makes very well considered recommendations. A former colleague of Allison said that Allison was responsible for turning that particular library into a yes library. The colleague attributed that achievement to Allison being not only a great communicator, but also a great listener. She really thrives in a fast-paced environment, which is what Hopkinton will be presenting for you in the coming years. First round interview panel, we had Nancy Hill, Sarah Hunter, Jay Gelfi, and Christian Merrill. And the second round interview panel included Nancy Hill, Danielle Cook, Amy Beck, Connor Deegan, and Maria Casey. And all the panelists were solidly and unanimously behind Alison Kinney's candidacy.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And welcome, Allison. I read through the documentation, your resume and the other information in the packet, and everything looks wonderful. And that was a glowing introduction about Mr. Khumalo. Do the board have questions and comments? And I guess I'll go one at a time in order because that is simpler. Irfan, do you have any questions or comments?
Just comments. I reviewed your resume. It looked impeccable. I love when we can steal someone from Dover. That's always a good thing. And after going through the interview panel, it sounds like you stood out above all the rest, and I'm excited to have you working for our library. As we have grown, as our library have grown, we have new positions, and I look forward to seeing how you thrive in this position and continue to build our library.
Okay, thank you. Mary Jo, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm excited. I'm glad to see the library open more hours. I just got my new little, I don't know, it used to be called a card. I don't know if they're still called library cards or not, but I enjoyed the public library, and it's welcome aboard. Glad to have you in Hopkinton.
Okay, Muriel, did you have anything to add?
So just want to say welcome. Obviously, I had the opportunity to review your resume as well. We feel very fortunate to have you. And I just shout out to the HR in the town for the process that we go through when we hire people that we can have so much confidence in.
Shaido?
Yeah, thank you for your interest and congratulations. Welcome on board. Our wonderful library keeps growing and we need a lot of help. I love our library. I'm happy that we are expanding it into Sundays. It's a great place for gathering, knowledge sharing, reading books, so many activities. It's a vibrant center for our town. So I'm really proud of it. And I'm so happy that someone as competent as you are joining and continuing the journey with us. Thank you and good luck.
And Allison, did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you all very much for the opportunity, and I'm very excited to get started soon and work in your wonderful library.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
Okay, so then we need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to confirm the town manager's appointment of Allison Keeney to the position of Circulation and Technical Services Supervisor at the library.
Second.
Okay, and then a roll call vote. Irfan?
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Shaido?
Gaidul Manan, yes.
And Amy Ritterbush, yes. Okay, welcome. Thank you, everyone. Okay, and then next on the agenda is the Teva, Allergan, CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens opioid settlements. The select board will consider authorizing the town manager to sign the participation forms, which must be submitted no later than April 18th. The settlement is similar to the prior opioid settlement that the town opted into. The only difference is that this settlement would release claims as to different entities. Teva, Allergan, I'm not sure if it's Allergan or Allergan, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and town council recommends that participation is in the town's interests. So Norman, would you like to give us a little bit an overview?
Okay. Yes, a quick highlight. This is a case that was brought about by several states, local political subdivisions, and special districts. Here in Massachusetts, our Attorney General has been solidly behind this case and has supported several towns in moving the case forward. In terms of what the settlement will require, Teva is to pay up to $3.34 billion over 13 years. And to provide either $1.2 billion of its generic version of the drug Narcan over 10 years or an agreed upon cash equivalent over 13 years. Allegan is to pay up to 2.02 billion over 7 years. CVS is to pay up to 4.9 billion over 10 years. Walgreens is to pay up to 5.52 billion over 15 years. And Walmart is to pay up to 2.74 billion in 2023. And all payments are to be made within 6 years. So how does this benefit Hopkinton? If Hopkinton signs onto the agreement, the settlements will be divided across different states, across different jurisdictions based on an agreed formula. By way of illustration, in the first settlement that was arrived at, I believe, either a year or 18 months ago, we have already started receiving, the town has already started receiving the settlement payments.
Okay. Do any board members have questions? And I'll go one at a time. Orfanda, do you have any questions and comments on this?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay, Mary Jo?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, Muriel?
No, it's definitely a good thing. And I happen to know that the state of Massachusetts has also just awarded a very large contract to have consultants actually working to help cities and towns make best use of the opioid abatement money. So hopefully that there's a pretty organized and facilitated and collective approach that really takes advantage of this opportunity.
Shahidul?
Yeah, I'm supportive, and I think it's a good thing, an important thing. I do have clarifying question, or just for everyone's understanding, if Norman, how many others are participating? Other towns are participating, and if what are the expected outcome from this participation?
Yes, unfortunately, at this point, we don't know how many jurisdictions will be participating. We will know after the closing of the filing date. The final date for towns, jurisdictions, states to decide to participate is April 18.
After that, probably you'll have that data.
Yes.
And the second part is, for everyone's understanding, what is the expected outcome and the timeline? Do we have a sense of it? By participating?
I think the general timeline is that the payments are to be made within the coming 6 years.
Okay.
We don't have an idea as to when the first tranche, second tranche, third tranche of the payments will be made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And do we have an idea of the amounts, or not yet until we see who else signs on?
Yes, we have the global amount. We don't have the divider in terms of how many jurisdictions will be participating.
Yeah, and it's likely, through you, Madam Chair, it's likely to also be determined by the need, right? So the experienced need across the state in the different participating towns and cities.
Okay, yeah, so I'm very supportive of it as well. Okay, so then we would need a motion to move to authorize the town manager to sign the TIVA. It sounds like it's Allergan, CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens opioid settlement participation forms.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then a roll call vote. Irfan?
Irfan Nasrallah, yes.
Mary Jo?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
And Shahidul?
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes. Okay. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is the FY24 budget. So the select board will consider adopting the FY24 comprehensive budget, operating and capital, and submitting it to the appropriations committee. And I will start with Mr. Khumalo to give us an overview of the updates since last time. And then we will also, the school committee has just had a meeting before our meeting, so they may have some updates from us as well. So we'll let Nancy speak after that. And if needed, I think the superintendent is there, so we might want to liven up her too for later. But Norman, do you want to give us an overview of what's been changed since last time?
Yeah, thank you. First off, let me take this opportunity to thank the select board, the school committee, members of the appropriation committee, and members of different town boards town staff for the continuing effort in building and developing a budget that will be presented to town meeting in May. Throughout this process, I have listened carefully to the select board and to the other stakeholders. And as directed, I have provided the select board with an update to the comprehensive budget transmitter. That information is available as part of the package, as well as on the town's website, specifically on the town meeting and budget web page. The update delivered a balanced budget proposal that would comply with the laws, regulations, and town policy. While this proposal does not recommend steps that are sufficient to solve the long-term imbalance between forecast revenues and costs, restraining growth in new positions is a credible start. The memorandum included in your packet and also shared online explains how and why proposed revenue estimates have been revised and provides for a set of budget adjustments that will result in a balanced budget. The adjustments proposed reflect the severe multi-year impact the town faces in light of an expensive list of planned capital expenditures, as well as continuing over-target budget requests from operating departments. This proposal accomplishes several valuable objectives. Number one, it would sustain critical services in FY 2023 levels. Secondly, the FY 2024 tax impact would be 2.9% on existing property owners, including both 2.3% for the operating budget and 0.6% if all the capital projects proposed for debt are approved by town meeting and by the voters. Thirdly, as has been discussed throughout the budget meetings, we have a proposal that meets all existing contractual obligations, and those obligations are quite substantial in light of the recent period of inflation. The proposal also provides $4.3 million in new funding for the Hopkinton Public Schools, which by itself is more than twice the amount available to the town in new funding from the tax levy allowed by Proposition 2.5. The proposal provides for many new positions in the schools. There are 0 new positions being recommended outside the school department. The budget proposal provides for a dramatic 26% jump in healthcare costs for school and town employees and retirees. It's important to note why this is critical in our budget discussions. There are several factors that have been identified as driving the increase in health insurance. I'll go through them point by point. However, I want to highlight that when we are negotiating health insurance, we are mindful of the 10 to 12 month lag in healthcare cost inflation versus general inflation. So what you see this year as a big jump is likely to be repeated next year. Specifically, the drivers. Experience to date in FY 2023 shows that the amount budgeted this year will be short by $1.2 million. I'm budgeting for an additional 9.5% cost increase for FY 2024 based on these factors. I should mention the going trend that our consultant has shared with us is that everybody else is experiencing a 12% trend increase. The factors are workforce demographics, general medical cost increases, the cost impacts of COVID-19 that are reflected in ongoing charges. We also have a number of catastrophic claim cases that have impacted the insurance cost to the town. And that's the cost that the town expects to pay. And that's why we have health insurance, so that our valued employees, when they're experiencing serious health care related challenges, that the insurance is there to support them. So I want to stress that I say this positively. I'm also factoring in about $200,000 for the cost of health insurance for new school department employees recommended in the budget, and another $200,000 to cover current employees who switch from spouse, parent, or other outside health insurance plans to the town plan. Over the recent past, we have seen a huge switch by our employees joining our health insurance. And in the times that we live in, where attracting quality employees is so difficult, health insurance provided by the town has become a big, big draw for the community. I continue to pay significant attention to negotiating health care costs, but this is not an expense that the town can simply wish away. The budget proposal addresses this issue without a plan to shift a bigger share of the healthcare expense to employees and retirees. The budget proposal continues pay-go capital spending to sustain operations and to protect valuable infrastructure, and it offers town meeting and the voters the option of supporting a pared down list of capital projects, including a start on a Hopkins School expansion. Finally, in an effort to preserve as high a bond rating as is possible, this proposal is fully compliant with town financial policies by bolstering the General Stabilization Reserve, by providing an increased contribution to the OPEB Trust Fund for future retiree healthcare, and by paying for all recurring spending with recurring sources of funds. Ideally, I would prefer if the town were in a position to grow and expand services to the community. All town departments have ideas and initiatives that could build on positive outcomes for the community. Unfortunately, the combination of a very substantial list of upcoming capital needs and the future cost of living increase expense tied to adding more employees now combine to create quite a significant tax impact 5 years from now. The document I have provided you is a recommendation. It's not a decision. I've tried to strike a balance based on the feedback provided about service needs and the very important multi-year tax impact on our residents. Of course, the select board and town meeting are free to propose or approve either more or less spending than is recommended. I am standing by for any new direction from the select board, and I look forward to continuing the budget process with the appropriation committee's review of whatever is forwarded to them for consideration. And let me also take this opportunity to specifically thank Tim O'Leary, CFO, the finance team, who have responded in a very nimble, agile, and prompt manner to most of the questions, the twists and turns that we've run into during this budget process. And with your permission, I want to also introduce Tim. He may have some additional comments to share, and is also standing ready to answer any questions you and the community might have.
Thank you. I think people will have questions. Tim, do you have anything to add briefly, or do you want to wait until we?
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khumalo. I have nothing to add. Mr. Khumalo's comments were very complete, and I'm here to help answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to have the school committee chair give some comments too, because they just had a meeting. But first, I want to just kind of recap for the public, in addition to what Mr. Khumalo said. So the changes from last time is we had some positive adjustments to sources of funds. There was an increase in local aid from the governor's budget proposal. That was $918,000. We were able to reduce our contributions to the Eversource appeals account because Eversource did not appeal the last tax year, their assessment. And then we were able to, that was $1 million. And we were able to apply some opioid funding to the Youth and Family Services budget for $30,000. So that's some revenue positive things that happened since last time. And then adjustments to the proposed budget increase. We were able to fund some land use expenses from building fees. So that reduces what we need by $50,000. I'm proposed to slow police vacancy recruitment for that. So that's we can remove $38,000 for that. Defer the communications staffing changes. And I just want to confirm, communications means dispatch in this case, correct?
Correct.
The public doesn't always know. Okay. So that would be a reduction of $36,000. Defer fire department staffing changes. That would be a reduction in $158,000. Level fund highway paving program. That's a reduction of $99,000. And then there's still the school increase adjustment. So it is, so that's, let's see. So the schools would be $350,000 less than they requested. So it would still be a budget increase of 7.7%, but not the full 8.4% originally requested. And then another change in funding is there were increased, as Norman highlighted, the increased benefits and employee health insurance funding for $1.6 million because we have more employees on insurance and there will be more employees. So it's going to go up for sure. Okay. And then I think then if Nancy from the school committee wants to give us an update from what they learned at their last meeting.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight after our meeting. Just as you referenced, the school committee did meet earlier this evening to discuss any updates on our FY24 budget, and our school administration has made some headway into looking at the request for the $350,000 reduction to our budget ask. We're looking, obviously always to protect teaching and learning in our schools, and that's, what the biggest piece for us is. The committee had asked for a little bit of clarification to better understand what goes into that $350,000, why that number specifically was arrived at in the town manager's recommendation. And I know I appreciate that Mr. Khumalo has said several times that we're still early in the budget process. The couple of things that we had looked at, one is that we are waiting to hear if we are going to be receiving a grant of $110,000 from the Student Opportunity Act, and that's going to be really pivotal potentially in how we look at our budget going forward. We're also looking at potentially if there would be other funding sources for some of our one-time expenses. At this time, the school committee, and in part because we're still early in the process, is requesting that the select board leave the $350,000 in the budget, comprehensive budget for now, as we look at some of these things, as we wait to hear about the grant funding that we could potentially have to offset and protect our teaching and learning. I appreciate that Mr. Khumalo had said that amendments can be made on town meeting floor, but I think that it behooves all of us to try to come to an agreement now. I think that town meeting could potentially be messy if we end up with amendments on the floor adding money into the budget. So we do feel committed to working, to the best of our ability. Really, the superintendent I know is here as well. If you guys have any other questions, the entire school committee I know is here on the call, but we are very concerned, even though our administration has worked hard over the weekend to try to identify areas where we could make some reductions. But even though the process is early, and I know that along the process, sometimes the select board comes back to the school committee and asks for additional reductions. And certainly I expect that we'll have additional joint meetings going forward. I've never seen a single dollar added back into our budget after you guys vote. And I am concerned that our teaching and learning could be impacted if the reduction is made before we have had the opportunity to ensure we're able to do it in a way that protects our students in teaching. So thank you.
Madam Chair, could I just ask a clarifying question? Nancy, I think that you said that town manager had suggested changes could be made on town meeting floor. I think he was saying that they could be made now, not on town meeting floor now.
Yes, but I am aware that if the select board and the school committee don't come to an agreement, there is the potential that people would make amendments on town meeting floor still. And that's just the way we govern. And I am concerned that we want to make sure we're able to do this right. So that's.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Right. That is not the way that we hope that this will be worked out, of course.
Same.
Okay. So I think now we will go on to questions from select board members on the changes from Mr. Khumalo and what Nancy Kavanaugh had just told us. So, so we'll start with Irfan. Did you have any questions on the updated budget?
Yeah. Excuse me. Mr. Khumalo, if I heard you correctly, did you say that you're expecting next year's budget to have the same type of increases?
I was addressing healthcare increases specifically, and yes, we have a substantial increase this year. We believe because healthcare inflation always lags by about 12 months behind general inflation, the increases that we're seeing this year will be reflected next year again.
Right.
And also just in general terms. And Tim can speak to this. Yes, we do have a concern regarding the rate of increases on the operating budgets in the coming years. We have provided a tool that has demonstrated what impact that might have if we, for example, scale back on the rate of increases from 8%, which we are seeing this year, down to 5%.
So, I mean, I'm very happy that I'm actually thrilled that we've been able to close that gap from 1.7 to 350. But it to me, it feels like we just kind of got lucky with Eversource not appealing. And I think next year we can expect Eversource to appeal again and go back to their normal ways. Hopefully they don't, but given that, you know, we were fortunate this year, it just makes me wonder about next year and how we're going to move forward. And I think that, you know, as we kind of go through the budgeting process, I think we have to be mindful of the fact that, you know, it's going to become more and more difficult to present a balanced budget. Given the circumstances that we're faced with this year, I'm thrilled that you know we've been able to close that gap. But I think that you know we really need to start thinking about how we move forward, unless we want the massive tax burden later on in the next 5 years.
If I may, through the chair, reference has been made to the Eversource payment. One point we wanted to clarify in the budget transmittal memo is how our budget calendar aligns with the calendar that Eversource uses to appeal. And with the chair's permission, I would like to ask Tim O'Leary to clarify that.
Thank you. Madam Chair, so we are preparing a budget for FY24, but the tax appeal issue will not be resolved on July 1st. Eversource will have until February 1st of 2024 to decide whether they will resume their 8-year pattern of appealing every tax bill or whether they will not appeal again. So we don't know how to interpret Eversource's failure to appeal this year. They have not withdrawn any of their existing appeals. They just did not appeal the new tax bills, and we're not certain that they won't appeal again next year. So we hope to learn more about that as time goes on, but we are not 100% certain that Eversource will not appeal next year. And they're not telling us.
Okay. So, Mary Jo, did you have, or sorry, were you done, Irfan?
Just going to say that, I mean, that just goes to my point that it's a non-dependable source of revenue. I mean, at a certain point, the appeals kind of fall off as we win them on the same fact pattern year after year. But it you know, I think what Tim is just saying is that, you know, we can't count on that. And that furthers my point that we need to think thoroughly about how we move forward.
Okay. Mary Jo, did you have any questions or comments on the changes?
I keep thinking about the new growth, and everybody I have ever worked for as an assessor always says, don't count on the new growth being the same every year, because it isn't. And I think we're going to lose some new growth, and it's going to we're starting to get less and less, and it has helped. And we have done wonderful with it, and we've had a lot of it for a lot of years straight, which has helped a lot with the schools and with the whole town budget. But that's not going to bubble's not going to last forever either. It's going down.
Okay. Meryl, did you have any questions or comments on the changes since last time?
Yeah. So again, congratulations to everybody who's been working this really hard. Also want to just say out loud that I appreciate that there's been so much public feedback as well. It's good to have people involved in the conversation. I know that in many ways it's because they're concerned, but all the feedback, ideas, suggestions, and constructive input really is helpful. I have sort of a more philosophical question for Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Khumalo. Sort of on the scale of 1 to 10, if you were going to rate this proposed increase on with a sustainability factor, what does it feel like in terms of how sustainable this kind of growth and flexibility is going out the next 2, 3, 4 years?
So I can go first, or Mr. Khumalo can?
Go ahead, Tim.
So I would step into this question by saying that if you are comfortable with given the current 5-year capital plan, if you are comfortable with a 33 to 50% increase in property taxes over 5 years, this approach is sustainable, no question. If you are not comfortable with that tax impact, then there will be challenges over that period if something like that capital plan is implemented. So this is something the town can choose to do, and we could spend more. We could restore all the cuts and have a higher tax impact, and we could move forward that way. If the town wants to make a conscious choice of joining that group of communities that tax at that level, then it's absolutely something the town can do. And it's a decision that we're trying to inform and not to make, but to inform.
Did you have additional questions, Muriel? Or Norman had a comment?
Yeah, just to add to what Tim said, in terms of how I would rate the recommendation in relation to sustainability, this proposal, I think, as we've been warning the community, it doesn't solve the long-term imbalance between the focus revenue and costs. And therefore, any step that we take now in restraining the operating budget's growth independent of capital is a credible start.
Okay. Muriel, did you have additional questions?
Yeah, so if I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Khumalo, but what I'm hearing you say is that from a financial sustainability perspective, this is a recommendation that you feel comfortable with.
With the rates of growth recommended in the memo before you, yes.
Okay, so I do have a question about the fire department in particular. What is the relative? I'm having a hard time figuring out the right words, but we have a bigger town, we have more people, we have more demands, their calls are increasing. How comfortable are we in asking them to forego growing their department?
I believe Chief Miller is here, if that would be helpful.
Yes, the chief is here tonight. There are many difficult decisions we are making along the way. What we are hearing in this recommendation is that this might not be the year to bring in additional staff in the fire department. Instead of hiring staff, we have looked at a different interim solution whereby we are increasing the investment in overtime in the department. As an interim measure, that investment does not come with additional benefits or PEP costs. So, in summary, great need. However, this may not be the year for doing so. We do have an interim measure to address the increased staffing needs.
Could we liven up Chief Miller? I think probably a lot of people are concerned about fire and EMT service. So maybe we could hear from him as well.
Yeah, and in fact, as the chief is coming along, it may be helpful to refresh the community's memory in terms of the substantial investments that the community has made in the department. I've been with the town now perhaps 13 years. The first years between 2010 and 2016, the community was generous enough to afford the department 4 impact positions. And then in 2016, 2017, we added another fire prevention officer, bringing that department to a staff of 2. And then in 2019, 2020, the community supported our request to bring in 4 additional firefighters. So I thought as the chief is getting ready to present his remarks, I should mention and thank the community for their effort supporting that department over the past 13, 14 years.
Okay.
Good evening, through you, Madam Chair. Could you just repeat your question for me, please?
I think it's, are you comfortable with the postponing the new, I think how the wording is, but postponing adding any new staff this year that originally was in the budget? Are you comfortable with the scenario for this year?
Yes, to work with the town, and we understand that we all need to take and play our roles to help close the deficit. Yes, and having the additional buy-in to provide some overtime to hopefully keep that staffing up with what we have. That's the best we can do right now.
Through the chair, I'll wait for my turn, but since we have Chief Miller here, I actually was asking that question to Tim and Norman earlier today, that the cut that now we are looking at, Chief, on the fire department ask, what is it going to impact? And the last time we spoke, we heard that you mentioned about not having sufficient addition for some time. And then through the discussion, we understand some of it was grant funded, and now we find that there were quite a few that were added over time, which is great. And listening to you, I think giving us more comfort, and Norman and team also confirmed that we have added 4, 2, and 4 over the last 5 years, if I got the numbers correct. But I just want to hear from you. What is the impact of this proposed, I think, 152K for the reduction to meet the budget? And do you see any further challenge in managing our fire services, meeting our growth and growth projection immediately?
So these are all good questions, and I'll try to keep my answer and short. Is right to the point. So I think Muriel stated it very nicely. The town is growing. We're showing those numbers. The town is growing. We're showing the increased demand for services. I'll give you a perfect example. This past Saturday, we had 4 calls literally right in a row. We had to rely on 2 mutual aid companies. That is going to continue to happen as the town continues to grow, and we all work together to try to keep the skyrocketing budget in check and all do our part. So is someone potentially going to wait for an ambulance or a fire truck? The answer is yes. That's inevitable. That's what we all have to decide. That's what we want and where we want. However, the additional funding that Mr. Khumalo and Mr. O'Leary have afforded us is a step in the right direction to try to keep that staffing up. Shadul, you had asked, I had mentioned during my budget presentation back on January 31st, I said to you, we haven't raised our minimum staffing since 2004. What that means is currently we'll drop down to 4 personnel, which basically gives you enough personnel for 1 call. So if a medical call comes in first, we staff with 4 people, 2 go in the lieutenant's car, 2 go on the ambulance. And that's basically 1 call at a time. If we staff with 5 personnel, which we are trying to do now with the money that we have, that'll basically afford you still 1 person being back in the firehouse to handle that second call or stop that second call. Again, is it safe? Is it the right answer? It is not, but it is what we have to work with today and right now.
Thank you. I kind of expected that. So thanks for clarifying, and thanks for understanding. I think it's a collaborative effort. So appreciate your Norman team. Everyone's working together to make it within our budget and also managing the risk. And I would rely on your expertise, your department's expertise to make such calls. I would just also echo the same as I have in the past, that we have seen tremendous growth and we're expecting more growth, and we don't want our services to go down or compromise or the quality of it for our town residents. So I think the theme is for good reasons. Let's cut where we can to fit the budget, and we don't want to, of course, increase taxes to our residents. But I want to also always keep the concept of balancing, as we go down that path. So I'm happy to hear that what I gather from 3 of you echoing is that there are some that you'd like to have, but it's not gonna be a high risk or immediate impact, if I heard you correctly. And my advice would be then let's focus on doing that maybe incrementally, where we can, help balance the budget and also not carry the risk or mitigate the risk, sort of.
So can I just clarify? So we're not cutting any positions, but we're not adding any new fire EMT positions.
That is correct. Yes.
But we are increasing some overtime so that some of our current staff could work overtime when needed.
Correct. And we're going to try to move our minimum staffing up within the allotted money that we're have right now.
Okay. And so I think we interrupted Muriel. She might have more questions.
Yeah, I know, and I feel bad. I was going to say, Muriel, go ahead.
No. This is great discussion. So I really appreciate that. And I think that it's not a surprise to anybody that this is concerning. And it's not necessarily optimal to not support your department in growing to meet the need that we have because of all the growth that we've experienced and the increasing needs. And I guess if I was going to have a go forward position on that, I would like to think that we prioritize the fire department as we are able to build that budget with some if we have flexibility going forward this year or into the next year. I do know that that we are expecting to not have a lot of flexibility in the next few years because of the big capital budget that is pending for our decisions going forward. So I guess I just want to make sure that I say out loud that I'd like to find a way to prioritize making sure not just the fire department, but I think it seems clear that the fire department's needs are in front of us, that we prioritize finding a way to make sure that that level of service in particular doesn't diminish.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I think that's exactly where I was heading to, that let's make sure we have a plan. And I think, Chief, you certainly do have a plan, and make sure that we do balance the need to address the growth with the budget that we have, even if it's not this year, but in subsequent years. Even if it's tougher subsequent years, we got to do what we need to do to make sure we are safe, we have the right and high quality services that your team provides to continue. And just for everyone's clarity, when we say cut, we mean the adjustment on the requested ask. So if fire department asks X and we said, please reduce that by 100K, that is the term we are using for cut. But actually it's a net addition to our budget. And that goes for every budget discussion we are having, because we are now at a pretty advanced stage. So we are adjusting, and that's where the word cut is used for.
Okay. And so, Muriel, did you get all your questions asked? Yeah.
I think so, but I appreciate Shahidul's clarification there too, because we are in the process of discussing adjustments to additions to budgets, not cuts to existing budgets. And I think that's important to remember. And I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. So Shahidul, if you want to go ahead, I think you had some additional questions too.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And I want to thank Norman, team, school, Susan, everyone involved so closely to really bring it to a more realistic level. And we've been lucky too, but altogether, I think this is looking very promising. So I'm very happy to see the progress. And this is what we do, right? We all work together, we address the challenges, we debate and prioritize, and then we try to come to a point where we can, do what's best for our town in terms of managing our budget, managing our services, and not adding to our tax burden. Now, that said, I'll go some tactical questions and comments, and then I have some areas that I want to also reiterate, just so we take this opportunity to also put our thought leadership and strategic thinking into play as we move forward into the future. So one thing I exchanged emails, and thanks team for your prompt and quick response to some of the OPEB questions. We're really lucky to have you, such a talented and dedicated CFO. I always feel really lucky. So one question I had for OPEB is to set the context. OPEB and stabilization funds are mainly for risk management and for our long-term assurance of our future healthcare obligations, as well as our risk fund, rainy day fund for stabilization. And while I was at the appropriations, I'm a big proponent of managing it from risk perspective for a long term for the town's healthy budget, credit rating, and all those. And what we have done over years, over the decade, is we have increased it from 200K per year contribution to 400K per year contribution. And this year we are looking at 700K contribution. And I'm, as I mentioned, very supportive of managing the risk with proactive action and thinking and helping build this fund according to our need. And what we have inquired and found is that we are actually, we were not a decade ago, but we are actually now in a much better shape than before. We are 69 in standing of the 351 towns in terms of OPEB funding levels, which makes me more comfortable than before. But we are always, so we are among the top quarter, I believe, if I did the math. So which is great, but the calculation changes every year, and it has increased 48% from last year to this year. That's one of the reasons why this trigger for increasing it. And the calculation is funny too, because a few years back, I don't remember the exact year, we were ahead of the game than we anticipated, because there are a lot of variability in the calculation of it. And good thing is it is something that's, far into the future, 30, 40, 50 years further down. So where I'm going with this is that while we want to be cognizant and do the right thing and provide our risk management hat while we look at it, I think this year's 98% increase in OPEB is a bit too high for what we probably need to do in terms of risk management, because of two things. One is, I'd rather do 98% to meet the 48% increase in the calculation over years incrementally and monitor it over the next few years. So if you're lucky, and if the maths also work well, and the interest rates start to go down later this year or next year, we may see the calculation coming into our favor a little more or a little better in the coming years. So my recommendation is that instead of doing all 700K increase at once, let's do it maybe in phases. And this year, maybe we allocate a lesser amount than that, maybe 100K, 150K, and save the others for the other dire needs that seems immediate risk if we don't meet up. So that's one area I would look at a little bit for the tuning opportunity. And same goes with the stabilization fund. We want to manage the risk, but again, I am in the side of not adding by reacting a little more than what we may need. And that's how I feel about that at the moment. I fully appreciate it. I think it's the right thing to do, but just the amount can be adjusted further. So if we can save along those lines, I think we can probably come out with another 300, 400K potentially that we could then help balance the rest of the asks from the school. Now, and I would also like to look at fire and communications, because I think for fire sounds like we are okay. I would like to also shed a little bit light on the communications, only because we had a lot of discussion on rec center related discussion that included communications state of things. And we heard there are equipments and other things that may need upgrades. So I have a little worry there. I haven't dived deep yet what this 30K or 50K reduction of the ask, quote unquote, cut may mean in terms of their additional ones.
So I don't see the communications department head on the Zoom, but maybe Norman or Tim could respond to what that represents.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, a couple points. Shardul, you make a good point in terms of the OPEB as well as the Capital Stabilization Fund. I think what we also need to think about is the basic structural issue that we're discussing and the need for us to comply with our policies. And through the chair, I want to ask him to really clarify to the community how we are proposing to fund the increases in OPEB and the stabilization fund and why it might be difficult to take those savings and apply them to the operating budget increases. And as Tim is getting ready to do that, quickly on communications, similar to fire, there are many ways of addressing staffing needs. I have discussed with the Director of Communications how we are proposing to move forward. Fortunately, town meeting approved some funding in FY23 to address in a very efficient way the issues that we feel down the road we may be able to address via an additional position. So the need schedule in terms of communication, the need is going to be met, but we're going to meet it in a more efficient and different way.
Okay, thank you, Norman. That's
Madam Chair. I guess to respond to that, I would say that when we budget for OPEB, we're budgeting for a future cost. We're putting money aside for a future cost. And what that does is make the town stronger in the future and give the town more flexibility in the future. So it's like putting money in your 529 account for your kids. It helps you prepare for the future. If you take that money and instead put it toward hiring more staff, and our staff is great, and our workforce is our product. But when you talk about hiring more staff, we see things like we're seeing this year, where employees 3 years down the road hit a plateau where they get a credential and they get a step and they get a lane, or they get some other entitlement, and you see a 15 or 20% increase in salaries in these lumpy, irregular manners. You see healthcare costs now. You see OPEB costs getting worse for later when you hire more staff. We have cash, and the town could choose to fund every single thing everybody requested and more. The issue is, where does that land us in 3 years? And if people are comfortable with where it lands us in 3 or 5 years, these needs are compelling and they're valuable. We have proposed adjustments on the town side that take all the new air out of the room. And we're trying to have some balance between our long-term stability and what we want today. And the issue with taking money from something you're going to save or invest and putting it into something that's going to be an expense, and an expense with a steep line of increase in costs in future years, is going to exacerbate our problem. Again, with a series of overrides and with an acceptance of tax impact, we could have any service level the community wants. We're just listening to what the feedback we're getting, and there's some dissonance in the feedback that people want all the services, they want all the assets, and they want low taxes. And we're trying to find a recommendation that walks that line.
Thank you, Tim. That's very helpful through the chair. I fully appreciate it. I'm on board with managing risk. That's been my focus all along, and I certainly support it. I'm just not convinced the whole amount justifies for this year, because we always have to balance among priorities. And I think, looking at OPEB increase because of calculation, say 48%, I'm okay if we do maybe match that and do 48% instead of 98%. That would be, I think, fair and square in my mind. But of course, we can debate about that. And the same goes for stabilization. Why? Because I think I mentioned it, but I want to, I think we all want to, as town leaders and someone who cares and wants the prosperity of our town to continue, keep focusing on and keep sending the message that we have underinvested in our infrastructure, our capacity, our school, which is our one of the greatest assets. And how so? If we look at the school, we have increased the budget 4 to 5% over the last 10 years, on an average 5.6%. And this is the first year we are seeing an ask of 8.1%. And we know half of it is because of contractual obligations, because of inflation, which the entire country is suffering from, entire world, to be fair. So there is a very good reason for this 8.1% increase. And I am extremely focused on being fiscally responsible. That's my theme of financial management all through my life, career, and what I do. But if we really look at it, we have to balance it and not initiate some more risk because suddenly we want to be very hawkish about it. 5.6% increase barely met the contractual obligations and operating cost inflation adjusted increases and did very little for growth. And I'm worried it will come back to us. It is coming back to us. We can all see it. It will continue to come back to us if we don't do enough as much as we can today, tomorrow. And will it be easy? No. Will it be painful? Yes, there will be some pain. But again, we want to balance it by focusing on not burdening the tax, but also focusing on making sure we don't compromise with the quality and the long-term prospect and long-term excellence of our schools. And we can, find that with this. So that is the priority I'm comparing, that the calculation and some long-term risk management, which we can do probably incrementally. But if we lose, say, schools, some teachers, some buses, or some other facility, that is not something we can, adjust in 3-5 years, even or wait to adjust, in other words. That is something it's going to impact right away. As soon as we don't fund that ask, there will be impact. There will be kids who are waiting for buses or in buses after their long day in school for an hour, add another 20 minutes to that, or other various impacts, teachers, class sizes, which are immediate and adverse impact. I'm just looking at these two priorities and I'm saying, okay, for OPEB, we can do it incrementally, another 100, couple 100, adding in subsequent years would not really make a huge difference of the 40 million that we are targeting in 50 years. And we will stay at it. We want to stay at it to grow incrementally. So that's one that I feel strongly about in terms of prioritizing across and how I would want to structure that.
Madam Chair, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure. And then I have some questions too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want, so maybe you should go ask your questions. I didn't mean to sort of intrude, but I do have one more question to ask after you're done.
Okay. So a lot of my questions have been asked. I have a list here, but I wanted to ask about the highway paving request. There would be no decrease in the highway paving. And that is something that I know residents already complain about, that there's not enough paving. So I just wanted to hear from Mr. Westerling about that. If we can liven him up, if he's comfortable with this adjustment. It looks like there would be no increase from last year, even though we are growing.
Through the chair, as John is coming on board, again, this is an issue that we discussed with John. We believe, given some of the efficiencies that we've built into our pavement management program, this change will not present an immediate risk. For example, our Colton Place paving process has garnered savings, substantial savings for the community, and John hopefully will apply those savings to doing some of the roads that were intended to be covered by the original budget ask.
Okay.
Through the chair, I don't know how much more that I can add that Mr. Khumalo hasn't already stated. I think that the biggest thing is that thanks to the hard work of Mr. Mike Manser, the highway manager, and the work that he does with the Colton Place recycling, which we see a 10 to 15% savings over typical construction methodologies, that helps us to make up the difference in what we're seeing for the proposed reduction in our ask. But we believe that we can make a substantial impact, as we have the past several years, in our roadways network.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It is something we get a lot of complaints about too, about roads. Okay. And then I wanted to clarify, I think Mr. Kamala said there would be no new positions on the town side. And I think a lot of people are wondering, we had that job description we approved for the person that would coordinate equity, sustainability, and economic development, that we approved that job description, but they've not been hired. So does that mean that is out of the budget, or because that was in last year's budget, that would go forward?
Your last comment through the chair is correct. That is in the FY23 budget. And therefore,
okay. So even though the person is not, so even though they're not hired, that would not be cut. Okay.
We have not frozen unhired positions.
Okay.
Through the chair, thank you for bringing that up. Another question that came following that up, and I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure Tim and Norman can confirm that when that position was not hired, say last year, the money went to the free cash, correct? And it came back to the budget. So it wasn't lost or it wasn't used for something else.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so my next question or clarification is on the stabilization fund. I believe in the email from Mr. O'Leary today, is this correct that there's 0 in the stabilization fund right now?
No, ma'am. That was the question was, how much is the deposit to the stabilization going up? And it's going up from 0 to the recommended $700,000. So there is a large balance in the stabilization fund, and I may have it up. I don't have the sheet up, but there's a large balance in the stabilization fund, and this would increase it. So we have a goal of having a certain level of stabilization to correspond to the size of the budget. And as the budget grows, we need to every once in a while make deposits to the stabilization fund so it keeps pace with the size of the budget. And I'll just say that during COVID, when other towns were laying off employees and cutting services because they were worried about what was going to happen with tax revenue, we did not do any of that here because we had a healthy stabilization fund. And then we ended up not using it. But other towns nearby cut positions and laid off teachers and reduced services because they thought COVID was going to be worse than it was. Because we had an ample stabilization fund, we did not do that, and we sustained services through COVID. So.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I lost my connection went out for a minute, so I didn't fully hear that. But so it's not 0, but we just didn't fund it we didn't add to it last year.
We didn't add to it last year.
Oh dear.
And I can probably bring it up. Just take me a second. If you want the dollar amount in the stabilization fund, I can tell you what it is. It's just my second device is a little slow.
Sure, Tim. It was around 2.5.
Yeah, I think it's more. It's I don't want to speak from memory. Let me go to I'm 2 clicks away from having it. So, thanks to Diane Hendrickson's spreadsheet, when it loads on my aging Chromebook, here it is. Stabilization fund. And that's where I pulled the OPEB numbers. The stabilization fund has a balance of $3.9 million. $3,919,273.79 was the December 31st number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and then let's see. I'm pretty sure this is I know this is the case, but I just want to say out loud. But what is proposed by Norman and the updated budget would not require an operational override, right?
No, it would not.
No. And are we approaching that if we were to add more?
If we could depart from our financial policies and use more free cash, use a one-time source of funds to pay recurring funding. Again, the town has a wide array of options open to it, and it could do that thing that's against our policies, take some free cash, hire people with it, and then we'll have to figure out next year how to pay for those people because we'll be paying for them with one-time money.
Yeah, I hear you.
If I may, Amy?
Yep.
Tim, there has been discussion about OPEB as well as our stabilization funds. We've also, throughout this discussion over the past months, talked about the importance of adhering to our financial policies. Against the background of increasing budget growth rates, as well as the proposed capital, what is the significance of complying with our policies?
Well, the bond rating right now for with a AAA bond rating, people are borrowing at 3.2%, and with a AA, they're borrowing at 3.6%. So it's 0.4% in difference. And I was asked by someone to come up with some scenarios this week on what the sensitivity would be for different factors. And if interest rates went down from what we use 3.4% to 3.2%, you could see that the tax impact would be, it would save about $200 a year for every household in the 28 budget. So think about that, about a 0.5% change in the interest rate that will be paid for this bulge of capital projects would result in about a $200 more in the pocket of every homeowner in the 28 tax burden. There's a lot of ways to explain that, but that's not a bad one. So it's not going to save thousands of dollars for someone. It's not going to take that $18,000 tax bill and make it 14 or 13 or 12 or 15,000, but it helps. So
yeah, I agree. 200 is a substantial amount that we'd like to save. I agree. But
I mean, we often talk about tax impacts in a normal year on the order of $250. That's the typical tax impact we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. And so that's saving that entire amount. And we agonize over those $250 increases to community members who can't afford them. And so that bond rating difference is the chance to save that amount right there with that. Now, will adding to the OPEB or stabilization be enough for us to retain our AAA rating if we borrow $300 million? I don't know that it will. I don't know that it will. But we need to try to preserve as much of it as we can, I think.
Yeah. Madam Chair, this is really the sort of the heart of my question. Do you mind if I just ask it? Oh
yeah, sure.
If there is a way for us to understand better what all the factors are that go into that bond rating, I think I understand the impact, and I appreciate that you just shared with the public a little bit more how that happens. But what are the factors that go into our bond rating, if they are concrete?
We know what they ask us. What we don't know is how they weight the information that we give them. I think your overall debt level is important. The stability of your tax base is important. Think about the town in Maine where the Bass Shoe Company was that closed and all their tax revenue went away. If the stadium moved out of Foxborough, that would have a very significant impact. So we have a really stable tax base. Our biggest taxpayer is now the LNG facility, and it would be difficult for them to move that. And then 83% comes from residential homes, and so that's quite stable. Mm-hmm. So that's an important factor, the current level of our debt. And then they look at the demographics of the community, what the average wages are, what the education level is of the community. They look at the quality of the infrastructure. They look at the quality of the schools. They look at, all those factors. They look at, diversity of the tax base. And yeah, so I can provide you with the disclosure that we provide to the bond rating agency, and you can see what they ask. We just don't know how they weight it.
I appreciate that.
In fact, Tim, sorry, Muriel.
No, go ahead.
Chair. There are two other factors that they really hype on, Tim. One is our management policies, right, as well as the liquidity of the town. And our stabilization fund goes into that formula.
Yes. And our OPEB liability. So they look at the balance sheet.
Right. Through the chair, I just want to add to that comment, and I appreciate all this. I think this is very insightful discussion, and thanks for that. And obviously, our policy is geared towards managing the risk. And again, I'm all for it, but I do think that it's priority wise more than what the benefit would be extracted by allocating so much. Here's an example, specifically to the bond rating, right? So as you have heard from Tim, and a fractional change in the OPEB level that would be provided by this 100% increase in OPEB in 1 year in the last 5 years will actually, in my view, and rational, and again, it's a complex calculation, would be lesser impact than, say, the quality of school goes down in 2 years, in 3 years, because that is directly related to our overall property valuation. And the bond rating group will definitely look at that. So if we are looking at, risk management, it goes across the board, not just, OPEB numbers or stabilization numbers, also by the service levels, the debt levels and others, as Tim mentioned. And school has a pivotal point in that valuation. So I just wanted to mention that. And second is that, again, we can do that incrementally without making it look, adverse. Just directionally, if we increase, which we are going to do, the OPEB and stabilization to some extent, that will show our strategic intent, and that will be accounted as a positive, in my view.
So, Madam Chair, if I can just clarify, and I don't have a side in this. I moved here for the excellent schools, and I'm delighted with the excellent schools. However, the way this OPEB works, and I've given this in previous briefs, 1% change in the actuary's estimate of how healthcare costs will rise results in a 20% change in the liability. Now, it doesn't result in a 20% change in our eventual costs. The costs are going to be whatever they are, but we have to also respond to the liability in terms of our financial planning and risk. And a 1% change in the estimated escalation results in a 20% change in the liability. And the actuary considers how rapidly you're funding the liability when they determine what the escalation will be. Now, how much we have in the account has absolutely nothing to do with what the expense will ultimately be, but that is what the actuaries use as one significant factor in computing the liability. So there are, it's not without cost or ramification, but it is a decision that can be made in any direction.
Okay, so I think the questions we get asked when the bond rating is determined would be really helpful for the public to have on the website so they can see, because it's not my area of expertise for sure. Because I do think when we're having to borrow for a lot of school projects, we do want to get the lowest interest rate that we can, so we don't want to lose that AAA bond rating. Let's see. Then the other questions. Okay, so Nancy brought up that I think that there are some one-time expenses in the school budget. So that is the sort of thing that maybe could be funded from our free cash, or could take some from stabilization, I think. And then there's a possibility of a $110,000 grant that they're looking into that would could help with some of their gap. Let's see. I think that is the end of my questions. And so go ahead.
Through the chair, I did wanted to understand another aspect. Question for Norman and team. I believe last year we had awarded 12 households with tax relief, amounting to about 12,000. That's what I found. Amounting to 12,000 or 15,000. And I'm wondering, how can we increase that? What is it going to look like this year budget-wise? And what are our opportunities to loosen up the criteria so it's less restrictive, so that more and more economically challenged group of our town or residents of our town and elderly can qualify, and we can help them more? Because, the budget that we are looking at and talking about, 12,000 is a drop in the bucket, and every dollar counts. But if we can increase it to, say, 100,000, And I remember we have discussed this. How can we help the vulnerables, help our long-term residents who may be planning to leave because of the tax increase or potential of tax increase? So I think we want to start looking at some of these opportunities. So starting with the question is, what is it going to look like in this coming budget?
So, Madam
Through the
Chair,
chair. Yeah.
I can answer this, but
Yeah. Tim.
but the tax relief fund is completely funded by donations. It's not funded by the town. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct. I think the question may be touching on the exemptions we provide. So we provide exemptions for disabled veterans and for, blind people. And of course, Mary Jo is very familiar with this world.
Yeah.
Those are very severely restricted by statute at the state
Statewide,
level.
by statute, yeah.
So we can provide an exemption to disabled veterans, a limited exemption, but we can't provide one to disabled firefighters or disabled police officers. We can provide an exemption
There
to
are
a blind
some.
person, but we can't provide one to somebody who's a paraplegic. So these state programs are not comprehensive, and they're not that generous.
And, well, the big problem with them is that their criteria haven't changed. So you can still only make up to certain amount of money, and that's it. And that's where it has to change, because they've allowed home rule petition. They've allowed you to increase the exemption. They were all $500 when they started, and we're $1,500 on most of us now. So because they've got such slack, they allow you through home rule to increase the amount of money people can get, which is a big help, but they haven't increased the amount of money you can have to get an exemption. And that's where the crux of the problem is. They haven't changed the law or the criteria to make it more available to more people. And one of the reasons for that is because many of the cities and suburbs of the suburbs and the cities have much bigger elderly and veteran populations than we do, and they don't want to see that increase. So we're sort of between a rock and a hard place, and I think we have to get after our legislators for it.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you, Mary Jo and team, for sharing your expertise. I don't have much insight into that, but what I would suggest is that we are the town's. All the town's key players are on this call, policymakers and action leaders. Let's get our heads together, how and what we can formulate to help on that front. I understand the statutory limitations and others, but in a creative way, what and how much we can do. Our approach is balancing, right? We want to care for all the residents, and this is another part. And this is in my view, an easier win if we can do that crafty solution development and policy development in some ways.
I know assessors all over the state have been working on this I think, and have run up against that wall that they're not willing to open the statutes and change the amounts allowable, not the amounts of the exemption allowable, the amounts have increased. But the amounts that you can have to get an exemption, it's
through the chair,
head up against the wall.
Through the chair, it certainly sounds as though this is a legislative issue that needs to be resolved before we can do anything. And I think we all appreciate that our hearts are in the right place. We want to do more, but if our hands are tied, then we should untie them and contact our legislators and see if we can make a change.
Okay, so I think we have gone through all our questions now. So we are tasked with, in the budget calendar, we need to submit a budget now to appropriations, to vote to submit a budget for appropriations. And I think we do know that it can change later if circumstances change. So we could submit the budget as Norman presented this weekend, which, let's see, so it's more than what it was at the previous time, but less than what meets all the departments' asks. Or we could submit a higher number, or we could submit a lower number. I'm not sure if we want to do a little bit of a straw poll first, or someone wants to make a proposal or motion to start.
From my perspective, I would move to adopt the fiscal year 24 comprehensive budget as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then discussion?
Yeah, through the chair, can we consider, I would strongly suggest that we adjust the OPEB and stabilization to half of what's asked and provide that additional funding to this meet up schools' demands. And I think it's a small, change in the things that we are talking about, the risk and all that, and it's manageable. And it would be a right thing to do in terms of managing the growth, managing the pain points that we are seeing.
The gap in the school's ask is about $350,000. So that's less than, so you wouldn't really have to reduce stabilization and open by half, correct?
Yeah, whatever is appropriate to match that. If we can accommodate, that would be my recommendation.
I think I saw some on hand raised. Did Carol?
So,
go ahead.
Sorry. So, as it was my motion, if we could maybe vote on Shahidul's suggestion separately, maybe even before we vote on my motion, because I would like to present it as presented. I would like to move it as presented.
Okay, but now we're discussing your motion so that we have a little bit of an idea.
Sure.
Mary, did you have a thought?
Well, I was going to ask Tim, what did we have budgeted for OPEB?
I think it's 800 some.
750, right? I think.
800, and Shahidul wants to reduce it to 100. That's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
So, Mary Jo, I think Tim is preparing the answer. We do 400 today. That's what we have done for the last 5 years, I think.
There you go. A lot of us have always been against it. And we have certain people on the board that's the way they balance the budget every year, and they've gotten used to it. And I've been one who said, no, let's fully fund it once and see what happens. And here we go. We're cutting it in half again.
We're not.
I would not be for it.
Sorry, Manager. Can I take a moment to explain it?
Mm-hmm.
So it is at 400K.
Mm-hmm.
It was at 200K 10 years ago. Then we increased it to 400K. So it is at 400K for the last 3-4 years. Why do we have to double
never
it?
Funded it that.
Why do we have to double it in 1 year? Because we saw increase in 1 year. Not double. Increase it from 400K to 500K or maybe 600K. Doesn't have to be 800K. That's my view. I'm not suggesting that we don't do it. This is, again, we are talking about additional from where we were, as we are doing for everyone. None of the departments, none of the budget areas got 100% increase. Why do we have to do 100% increase? That's a knee-jerk reaction to a problem.
Because we haven't funded it.
No, we have. We have funded it.
They're fully funded it for years.
Who hasn't? What do you mean by
the town hasn't?
$40 million is.
I've been on the board, and the way they've.
Okay, so stop. Okay, so one person at a time. Let's let Mary Jo finish her, and then we'll go back to Shahidul.
Well, when I was on the board the last few years, and they always cut OPEB to balance the budget, and I don't think that's a smart thing to do.
Okay, and it did not fully cut OPEB, I believe. It did cut partially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Shahidul, do you understand Mary Jo's position?
Tim, can you confirm when did we cut OPEB the last time?
I think it was the last year.
Sorry, Mary Jo, can you?
Brian's last year, and we've done it other years too. We haven't fully funded it that I can remember.
I'm sorry, what is your view of fully funding?
So
funding at the 800, what it was supposed to.
No, that is not fully funded.
Okay, so I think Tim has the answer, so let's let Tim answer.
So, Madam Chair, I don't know if I have the exact answer, but several years ago, we started a program of funding it at $400,000 a year and increasing that by 2.5% a year. We wanted to get on a point where we could have a path that would get us up to a good amount that would fund it that wouldn't create new burden every year on the tax base. So we get a 2.5% increase in the levy. We said we're going to take this amount and we're going to increase the contribution by 2.5% every year. And that's how we got to the unusual number last year of $420,250. And we were originally planning to go up by 2.5% on that. But in the last two reviews, our liability has ballooned. And in response to that, so it doesn't keep ballooning, so we get the more favorable read on our estimates from the actuary, the proposal was to go up a step and then go up 2.5% every year from that. And this reflects that briefing that was made to the select board last September or October about the different ways we could address OPEB. And one of them was to do a step increase and then resume the 2.5%. What we didn't want to lock ourselves into was a low amount and then promising we would raise it by 5% or 6% or 7% a year, which would squeeze us in the future. We wanted a sustainable path.
Thank you, Tim. So that kind of demystifies that we cut OPEB. We have not. We only didn't address the 2.5 increase, which would be 420, as Tim mentioned. And we are doing significant bump by even if we go to 600K or 500K instead of 420K. So let's be clear on that page. No one cut. I wasn't in the select board last few years, but from what I've seen from SC, we were planning for 400K and then 2.5. That may be a little bit tweaked here and there, but it was funded as we expected. And yes, this year it has gone up, and several years or 2 years back, it had gone down. When it went down, we didn't cut it for the same reason. We said, yes, we are happy it went up. Our numbers are looking better, but we're not going to cut it. So same way, when we are seeing up this year, the highest inflation year in several years, let's not overdo it and hurt the other areas. That's my point. It's not that we don't want to do it.
I would be more comfortable with that, with the 400 plus 2.5. But when you said 100,000 at the beginning of the night, that scared me because
sorry, yeah, I meant
at the future problems.
Yeah, I meant 100 in addition to 400. So it's 500.
Okay, so we need to try to wrap this up. So I'm going to suggest that if perhaps Shahidul would want to recommend that we take, so the school's gap is a $350,000. We could take 175 from what we were going to deposit into stabilization and 175 from what we were going to deposit into OPEB. That could be a suggestion. I don't know that it's going to pass, but knowing that we could remove it later if funding was found from the schools for grants or other things.
So through the chair, Mr. O'Leary, what would the effect be if instead of jumping to the 800, we jumped to 600 as Mr. Mannon is asking? What would the impact be on the liability? Say we did it on a two stages, right? We do one stage of two, go to 600 this year, then go to 800 next year.
Sir, Madam Chair, that is better than what we were going to do before the liability went up, and it's not as much as what's in this proposal. I think the bigger issue, there are other sources of funds. There's free cash. The bigger issue is if you're going to use this money to hire people, we're going to have pay raises for those people. We're going to have health insurance for those people, and we're going to get new OPEB liability for those people. So that is to me a different lens on this. So 600 would be better than 400, not as good as 800. It would show some progress. I don't know how the actuary will interpret that because their actual decision model is kind of secret. But it's not just about the availability of dollars. It's about the character of the dollars.
Okay, so I think we do need to wrap up. So I'm going to suggest if Irfan would be willing to withdraw his motion and let Shahidul make a different motion, then we can see if that passes or not, and then we will go back to Irfan's. Would you be agreeable to that, Irfan, or would you like to go ahead and vote on your motion?
Yeah, if he wants to make another motion that we can vote on.
Can I say one thing? Can I say one thing before we do that?
Sure.
So we're facing, this is just the reality with the capital request coming. We're facing periods of increasing inflexibility in these financial conversations. So I'm listening intently to Mr. O'Leary in particular, who is an expert in this. And for a couple of reasons, we want to make sure that we are as financially sound and stable, and in some ways moving conservatively so that we protect our position in the out years. These decisions aren't about fixing today's problem in a way that makes us more comfortable. It's about making sure that we don't increase tomorrow's next year's budget problem and the year after that's budget problem. They're going to be increasingly difficult to confront and manage, even if we are really steady and conservative this year.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to add last comment is that why this year? In the last 5 years, the SB has not done it. It didn't even meet the 420K that was proposed by the Appropriations Committee, as Mr. Leary mentioned earlier. So you could have done it 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Why this year 100%? Because there was some increase, I understand. But that is not...
I think we're starting to repeat ourselves.
Yeah,
so I think we need to
repeat, but I'm just saying that the policy and the risk that we have carried for a decade cannot be changed in a year. And we are overshooting to correct it in a year. And
okay, I'd like to let Norman make a comment. Okay, go ahead, Norman.
This is a very vibrant, forward-looking discussion. And there could be perhaps a way forward. And I'm offering it based on what I have heard so far in the discussions. Starting with Nancy Kavanaugh, the chair of the school committee, made very informative remarks earlier on, where she indicated that the school committee, whilst it is urging the board to adopt the number that they provided, will continue to look at how the school committee could get to the 350. In addition, there has been a vibrant, robust discussion amongst select board members in terms of how the town could respond to whether there's an adjustment made or not, or some level of adjustment made. I also, with regard to aspects of the budget that I think we have all heard from Tim O'Leary, we've heard from others, are very important for some of the decisions that the town needs to make going forward. I'm also now tapping onto past practice, where I have seen the select board consider moving the budget to the Appropriations Committee at some level with a clear articulation of some outstanding questions that the Appropriations Committee, through its normal process, could review and then continue to engage the community and then feed back to the select board for future discussions. I think that approach is a win-win. It accounts for Nancy's remarks that the school committee has been looking at how to meet the 350. It accounts for what is important for the select board in moving the budget that can be decided prior to the time we get a town meeting. And we have the Appropriations Committee process that does that. If there may be charged specifically to look at what are we going to do with OPEB. And so I have seen the board adopt the budget as recommended with clear instructions to this Appropriations Committee on the aspects of the budget that the board would like to hear more about. I offer that as some way of moving this discussion forward. Respectfully.
Oh, sorry. Carol has her hand up as well. So we haven't heard from Carol tonight, so.
Thank you. So through the chair, I have a couple of comments to make tonight. One of the things that is true about the school department budget is we begin this process in September. The school committee voted on this budget on January 19th, and it's only been the time period between, first of all, February 28th, and then most recently, March 11th, that we've been asked to make some adjustments to the budget. I feel like you are putting us in a very difficult place when we have a budget process that goes on for 4 or 5 months, and then we're given 4 or 5 days to decide where we're going to make reductions in the amount of $350,000. At the same time, we planned this budget based on 4,186 students. That's the number of students projected to be in our district at the close of next school year. I have 4,202 students in that district today. If you take a look at our Chapter 70 money that comes in, that's based on essentially your school population, but also on your ESOL services and your special education services, that came in at over $1 million more than we expected it to, that revenue. And it did because of the number of students and the needs of the students in our district, if that's just one other way to look at it. So if you go back and you look at the video of our school committee meeting this evening, you'll see that we've gotten to a place where we have about $235,000 that we think we can remove based on the $350 you've asked us to remove. What we're asking tonight is that you hold off on about $115,000, because that's the money, the grant money that we're waiting to hear on. If we get that money, the Student Opportunity Act money, we're going to be able to do what you're asking us to do. What I'm asking you to do tonight is not to vote so that you reduce us by the whole $350,000. I'm asking that you vote so that you reduce us only by the $235,000, because I think we can get to that place. And I'm saying that only as the superintendent. I can tell you that in our meeting previously, the school committee was very divided on the way they were feeling. Many of them didn't even want to support the $350,000. But what I'm telling you is it's going to be very challenging for me to be able to take the full $350,000 out of that budget without knowledge of that grant, whether we're getting it or not. And so I just wanted to put that out there before you actually take your vote so that you could hear from me the way I think that the administration, Monday morning, we had building principals, we had every director in the central office from 7:30 to 10:30 trying to put together something that might work for us. And we're there. But essentially, when you make a decision on Saturday, and today is Tuesday, we've had 2 work days to come together on this, and that doesn't feel quite right. So I thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Shaggy, did you want to make a motion for an amount?
Sure.
And then we'll see if it passes.
Okay. Thank you, Carol, Norman. Again, that's what we want to do. We want to get our good thoughts out, all the options explored, and come up with a solution that works for everyone and for the betterment of our town. So with that, I think that's even more reasonable. So if we are talking about $235,000 that Carol was referring to, the remainder is what, $115,000 that we now need to find at a minimal for school? Is that how we understand it? So I think the motion is, I would move the motion that we adjust OPEB and stabilization to provide $115,000 for the school's budget.
And how would those be divided though?
Oh, yeah, good question. We can divide it split it in half. I would look for Tim's guidance. I don't think it makes a big difference, but I would be open.
Okay, so the motion is to submit Norman's budget with an addition of
adjusting Norman's budget by taking out.
Well, not reducing. We're going to vote it. Norman recommended a budget of. I don't have the number. So we're wanting to add to that budget.
Not add. I'm thinking we are taking out 130.
Move it around.
Move it around. So what is it? 65? I'm not doing the math right.
Okay, so it's the same number, but we're moving money around.
67,500 from OPEB and 67,500 from stabilization fund. and provide that 135K to the school budget within the same proposal.
Okay, with the understanding that they might find grant money that could reduce that.
And then,
Okay.
and then return that to the operating budget so it could come back. That seems a little, is that what you intend? That it would come back to OPEB and stabilization if they realize the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, to be clear, what we're really, if we're short, if we need to fulfill 350 and at 235, we're at 235 right now. If that money comes into, yes, our operating budget, that will fill that gap. Just to make sure on our side, that will fill our gap. Am I saying that correctly?
So are you saying that you need an additional 235 at the moment or additional
115?
10?
Yeah,
115.
10 really.
Okay.
Okay.
And 115 is the grant money that we're hoping to get.
So we're not sure if we'll get.
Yeah. Then, because, if I may ask a question, Amy? Carol, thank you so much for the remarks and thank you for the clarification. In the event, when do you expect to hear on the grant?
So I don't know the answer to that. The assistant superintendent did call DESE the other day to find out, when we would hear. They don't have a hard and fast answer for us yet.
If the grant funds come through, what then happens?
Then that would be used
for stabilization and OPEB, correct, Shadul?
Correct.
No, that money would come. It would come to us to pay for the
right, but
yeah.
But then the money we had allocated to you would go to stabilization and OPEB, right? Because you would be getting it from a grant instead.
Can I just
So to clarify,
through you, Madam Chair, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it is much more straightforward for us to vote the budget as recommended with the messaging to the department heads and the appropriations committee that we are amenable to, if everybody agrees, that we're amenable to considering reducing the OPEB and the stabilization contributions if the grant does not come through. I just think that's a more straightforward approach.
Okay, are you comfortable
Is that a
with that,
motion?
Shadul?
Through the chair, I'm just going to clarify. What I heard is that even if the grant comes in, there will be 115K short. Is that correct?
No, we have a means at this point. And I don't want you to think that we're happy about this means, but we can get the budget down $235,000. What is missing is about 115 and the grant is for 110. And so if the grant comes in, then the problem is solved. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think in that case,
If what Muriel had said is a motion, I'd be willing to second that.
I can make that a motion.
Then I second that.
So we're ready for a roll call vote then?
Mm-hmm.
So Irfan?
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Shadul?
Qaidul Manan, yes. And I would emphasize that we need to send the message that it is amenable based on what the grant standing looks like. And, but I'm yes.
Okay. And Amy Rodebush, yes. Okay. So I think we are done with the budget for tonight. I'm sure we'll be back. Okay. Let's see.
So we're an hour behind schedule.
Working. Let's see. Can you hear me still without my headphones?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're telling me they're out of battery. Hold on.
We hear you very well. Oh, I think maybe she froze.
I'm gonna try switching to my speakers because I can't hear. I think I'm out of batteries. Okay, can you hear me over the speaker now?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you. And now we
Okay.
can see you again.
All right, now I can hear you. Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the town meeting warrant. Select Board will consider reviewing the annual town meeting warrant. The board will hold a working session with Dave Del Torio, Town Engineer Facilities Director, and John Westerling, Director of Public Works, on articles pertaining to easements on the annual town meeting warrant. The Select Board will consider taking positions on its own annual town meeting articles, and the board will consider finalizing the language of its own articles, including the short-term rental bylaw. So if we could have Dave Del Torio and John Westerling give us an introduction to the easement articles.
Dave, go first.
Okay. Good evening. It's the first time I've actually presented for an easement. In the packet, I believe there was an easement plan provided. This easement is really a continuation, well, I say continuation of the original construction of the EMC park. It's the addition of a drainage pipe from the existing infrastructure through the backwoods in coordination with a property owner on Hazel to reconnect into the existing infrastructure on Hazel Road. I think the plan is presented now. And again, this was the original design and permitting and approval of the EMC park. Had a pipe shown going from the detention, the stormwater basins behind the baseball fields, going in this direction out towards Hazel Road.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, just a quick question. Sorry. So is the property owner agreeable to granting the easement?
Yes, the town has been in coordination with the property owner throughout the design process.
Okay.
We've met them out on site. They're well aware. They've seen all the easement documents from town council. So they've been an integral part of the process throughout.
Excellent. And this doesn't cost the town anything, right?
The easement itself?
Right.
I don't believe so. There's no financial agreement in place.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Jo, did you have any questions? I think I'm a little bit frozen again. There we go. There's
No, I think easements are kind of self-explanatory. I understand. No questions.
Okay, Muriel, did you have any questions?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Shaidu?
Just a quick clarifying. What is the timeline for this, and would it incur any cost?
There are no costs associated with the easement. There is a funding request at the on the warrant. The project is currently being advertised for construction. The intent is to, the article passes a town meeting, start construction very soon after.
Thank you. And what is the amount, and where is the source of funding?
This pays capital.
Norman, I'm not exactly sure where on the warrant. It might be under the pay-as-you-go article. The easement itself is a separate article. The funding, I think it might be in the pay-as-you-go article. Sorry, I'm not.
If I may, through the chair, yes, Dave, you're correct. It's under pay-as-you-go. And again, to be specific, what we're seeing is an impact of an accumulation of multiple projects that have been approved around this neighborhood. The bulk of those projects are town projects. as we were implementing the last town meeting approved drainage improvements at EMC, we came into what Dave is now presenting, the need to seek an easement to implement some of the changes that will improve the drainage situation in the neighborhood. And so there's a capital request to augment a prior appropriation at town meeting. And for some aspects of that project to move forward, we need an easement.
Thank you, Norman, Dave. I'm supportive of this. I think this makes sense and we need it for other reasons. I'm just looking at, the funding and source for it. So it is going to be a capital debt exclusion. And what is the amount?
No, it's pay as you go. We will pay from free cash.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. So on the easement, do you need us to vote to recommend or not recommend the article, or it's just for our information tonight?
We again, here's the process. We are introducing different components of the warrant to the board. Initially, they were the financial articles, and this time we're presenting the non-financial articles. If the board feels inclined to support the request as presented tonight, that's fine. If the board wants to wait to hear more about the other easements that are presented and then vote your position at a future meeting, that's fine too.
Okay, but are we hearing about both of them tonight, the other easements? Maybe we could just hear them all and indicate approval.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so what's the next easement?
Thank you.
Through the chair, if we could bring up the slide deck that I had prepared, please, if that's possible.
Does Ben have that, or do you want to share?
I am not able to share. I apologize. Ben, do you have that?
Through the chair, I am working on bringing it up right now.
Thank you very much, Ben. So I'll start the discussion on the first one. You'll see it in a moment. There is an existing drainage structure, drainage detention basin right in front of number 77 South Street. And to orient you, 77 South Street is where Mr. Mastriani had constructed the new facility that houses several businesses, including Project Just Because. So there's an existing drainage structure there, and Mr. Mastriani is going to grant an easement around that structure so that the town can maintain that drainage structure as necessary. It's approximately 20,000 square feet, and it will be coming from Bevleo, B-E-V-L-E-O Realty LLC.
Okay. Do any board members have questions or fun?
No, I'm all set.
Mary Jo?
I'm all set.
Muriel?
All set.
Shaidu?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe we don't even need to see it.
You might want to see the next one, and hopefully Ben can bring this up. I'll skip to the third one because that's an easier one. There's a drainage easement required at 20 Downey Place. It's approximately 1,600 square feet, and it will come from Mr. Renz F. Hayes IV. And this is to accommodate a drainage design outlet for new catch basins, which will be installed on Downey Place. We've got a low point in Downey Place. There is a town meeting article for construction of drainage improvements there. And this will allow for the discharge pipe. There we go. Thank you very much, Ben. This will allow for the discharge pipe to run from Downey Place down the hill and into Lake Maspinock, which, if you're looking at the screen, Downey Place is on the right, Lake Maspinock is on the left. And again, that's 1,600 square feet. And the property owner is agreeable to allowing this easement.
Okay. Do board members have any questions or fun?
Nope, all set.
Mary Jo?
All set.
Muriel?
I'm good.
Shaidu?
I'm good. This has gone through our planning board, right?
Through the chair, it has not. We are in the midst of design, and it will require town meeting approval of the actual construction at the end. And I don't believe that this will require planning board approval, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
All right. Was there one more?
Usually.
There is one more. And Ben, if you could go back to the easements for Lake Maspinock Dam repair, please. I believe it's, there we go. Thank you very much. So to orient you here, we are in the, we're in the town of Milford right now. What we're looking at here is we've got Pine Island Road to the right-hand side. On the upper left-hand corner, you can see a rough outline. That's where Lake Maspinock is. And we've got, I'll start with the piece on the far left-hand side. That is 1,773 square feet from a William F. and Catherine A. Sweeney. And all of these easements, I apologize, all of these easements are to accommodate the reconstruction of the dam wall. That's money that was appropriated by town meeting last May, and the work will occur this fall. So the far left-hand side, there is an easement from the Sweeneys, 1,773 square feet. They are agreeable to granting this easement. On the far right-hand side, we also have from William F. Sweeney, we have 2,334 square feet. And then in the middle, so those two are easements. In the middle, we have the requirement for an eminent domain taking. And the reason for that is the property is owned by the heirs of William H. Casey, and neither the town of Milford nor our search through the Registry of Deeds could we find out who those heirs are. So in order to accommodate this work and to take the necessary easement, Town Council recommends that we take an eminent domain taking here of 2,883 square feet.
So that's complicated. Okay, but do any board members have questions on that?
Through the chair, is there, I mean, with any taking, there's just compensation. Do we know what that's going to cost?
Through the chair, we don't believe there's any financial obligation here. If there is, for legal costs or what have you, we have sufficient money in our appropriation in a grant that we received to cover those costs.
Okay. And if the heirs were to be found, you could always negotiate with them then.
Correct.
So that sort of was my question too. Do we have to set aside some money that is, fair market value in case heirs do come forward?
I'll recommend the board does. With any taking where you cannot find relatives, at some point when there's public discussion, some relative is going to show up.
Okay.
This is
all right.
This is a construction easement, though. We're not taking anything, right?
Right.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so we
it would not be very much then.
Moot point.
Okay. Shaidul, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I think I was going to ask about the cost or funding involved, and I would also recommend if we anticipate some costs, let's try to find it and allocate that.
Okay. So Mr. Westerling, is that the rest of that's all the easements?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. So would board members like to recommend approval of the easements as presented in the town meeting articles?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And roll call vote?
Irfan Rasooli, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Heidelman, yes.
Mira Bush, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then short-term rental bylaw, review and consider accepting town council's suggested edits. So could town staff go over the gist of the edits? It was a long one, a lot of blue lines through it.
Through the chair, Elaine, you want to take this over, please?
Sure.
there is a lot of wordsmithing involved, but the intent and eventual operation of the bylaw would be essentially the same. So it's great to have town council review. And going through, it's moving some things around, it's terminology, and it's making sure that things are clearly worded, but I don't think it changes the intent or how the bylaw would operate. Perhaps adding in, he's suggesting a little, some changes to clarify things and, looking out for the town's best interests.
I agree.
Okay. And then I had suggested last time, and he may not have had a chance to look at this, if we should allow an exemption for Marathon Week for people who just rent their house, maybe once for charity, once a year. And I didn't know I don't even know if the other board members agreed with me that might be a good exemption to have.
Would that be an exemption to not require a license for that short-term rental?
Yeah. If it was less than 6 days within, I guess.
Monday.
Through the chair, I am not in support of this. I still don't see it as necessary. So as just one single board member, I would not be in support of this.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, just for clarification, Irfan, you wouldn't be in support of the exception?
No, I wouldn't be in support of the license
The whole
requirement altogether.
The whole zoning.
The whole thing, yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm still up in the air, Amy, but I'm amenable to thinking about your exemption suggestion. The only thing I worry about is that it does complicate things.
That's true. Okay. All right, then I for myself, I still want this to go forward to town meeting and let everybody discuss it and vote on it. But if there's not like a consensus about complicating it with the marathon weekend, then let's not bother with that. Okay, so do we need to recommend approval of it to move it forward? We can still move it forward whether or not we approve
put
it.
it on the warrant, right? Do we have to have a recommendation?
Warrant, so it's already on the warrant, so
It's already on the warrant, yeah.
yeah.
Just a lot of times residents asked, did the select board recommend approval, I guess.
Right.
But-
So, I mean, do we need to take a vote to determine whether the board recommends approval?
Through the chair, before we do that, I just wanted to understand from Norman, is this recommendation or the change requested to address certain legal risk in future, or what was the driver for it?
We had a group of residents come that had an issue on their street.
No, that I know. I'm talking about the change that's requested tonight.
The town council's recommendations.
Town council's, right.
Could you try again?
Town council's recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, there are two sets of recommended changes that have been discussed. With any bylaw change, we run it by town council to make sure that it's legally compliant. So that's the driver. We sent the bylaw to town council for their review to ensure that the bylaw is compliant with the laws of the state. And then there's a separate change that is recommended by the chair, Rita Bush, namely that we exempt the short-term rentals during marathon week from this bylaw.
Thank you.
That change, again, was proposed by Chair Rita Bush.
Thank you. So on the overall, I think I would like to see it in the town vote as well. And with these recommended changes, I like how Amy's exemption change request, and also would like to include town council's change request only to be compliant with the law, even though it may sound complicated. But overall, I don't have a firm position yet. I hear Irfan's concerns. I do think, operationally, if we can handle it right, it may be a good thing for both sides, actually. But I would like to hear how, more and understand more from both sides in the town meeting, perhaps.
Okay, so I think we're all okay with if it goes forward that it has the town council's changes, correct? Right, okay. All right, so
Yeah,
we can
100%.
Okay.
I think, can I just say something? I'm sorry. I think for Irfan, I think we're getting ahead of what could possibly become a future problem. I have a nephew who owns 5 Airbnbs in various places, and he's a good owner, but there are a lot that aren't. And I think that licensing, we're just getting ahead of the game. We're going to have to eventually anyway.
So, I mean, it's pretty late right now, so I don't really, I mean, I've said my piece before, and I'm
Yeah, we
happy
don't need
to
to
do it
be
again
everybody.
at town meeting. But, so I'm happy to talk to you offline. I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, no, I think we can take offline, and again, we will have room for discussion once it goes to the town as well.
Yeah, we'll talk at town meeting.
Okay, and so trying to think, it's okay with me if we don't have the exemption for Marathon Week. It was just a thought. So shall we not bother with that for now then? I think.
Well, we got time.
Okay. All right. So the next item.
If I may, sorry, Amy, just process the comment that board members may take this offline may be misinterpreted. I just want to make sure we assure the public that these discussions regarding this bylaw are going to all happen in open session.
Thank you, Norman.
Or town meeting.
What about information collection? But thank you for clarifying. Absolutely. Fully transparent and in our public meetings. And to clarify, Amy, did you just remove your earlier request? I'm just trying to understand.
I wasn't hearing strong support for that, I guess. So if people felt that we should add that, that's fine with me, but it's not super important to me either.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so could we ask town council then about allowing that exemption and how it complicate things?
I think it's a good idea to be prepared.
Okay. All right, so the next item, other town meeting articles. I think I'd rather skip any others if possible, since it's so late. I think they can wait. Okay. So the MWRA Southborough Interconnection Project Intermunicipal Agreement. The Select Board will consider approving the intermunicipal agreement between the towns of Southborough and Hopkinton, whereby Hopkinton will receive its potable water supply through Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, MWRA, through a connection to Southborough's water lines in order to secure and supply water for drinking and other uses in Hopkinton. And so Mr. Kamala put a draft in our packet, and it sounds like he might have some more information.
Yeah, through the chair. I also included a memo outlining the key terms of the IMA. This is a 25-year term agreement. Hopkinton will be obligated to pay for all the design, construction, peer review costs. What does this really accomplish for Hopkinton? Hopkinton will be purchasing MWRA water from Southborough. This is water that is already allocated to Southborough. We therefore, based on what I'm hearing from John, may become Southborough's largest water customer. We are asking for 2.7 million gallons per day for Hopkinton. This represents our current needs plus a 50% expansion for the future. We have provided, and the IMA does this, explain exactly the extent and the scope of the project. It's an installation of approximately 2,000 feet of new 12-inch diameter water main in the vicinity of the proposed interconnection on Corderville Road, Southville Road, and River Street, and approximately 2,800 feet of new 12-inch diameter water main in Parkerville Road from Route 9 to Fairview Drive. It will entail upgrades to the Bolland and Hosmer pump stations, increasing those stations' capacity to approximately 3.5 million gallons per day. There will be an installation of a new booster pump station between Deerfoot Road and Sassenstone Way to improve water distribution to the Fairview Skylar Drive neighborhood. There will be a replacement of the aging Oak Hill tank. We're replacing the existing tank with a taller, large tank with an increased storage capacity of up to but not exceeding 1 million gallons. Southborough has asked that for any roads that will be impacted, that Hopkinton pay for the curb-to-curb resurfacing of any streets that are excavated as part of the project. It will also, it needs to be said, because we've had this question, people asking, will this alter the distribution system in Hopkinton? No, other than implementing the main connection from Southborough all the way to where I believe Legacy Farms North Road comes into Hopkinton. I know comes off 85. We will also be responsible, Hopkinton will be responsible for securing all required design and construction permit approvals. However, Southborough, as the operator, will be responsible for approvals and permits required to operate the water system as expanded. They will also be responsible for the water testing, monitoring, and sampling. We have received questions from the public regarding the relationship between this project and PFAS. We're continuing to explore that. And as the process moves forward, we may have specific language regarding PFAS testing, which will comply, which with what we think is coming down the pike, new updated state requirements and regulations for PFAS. We also mentioned, I think I mentioned at your last meeting, that Hopkinton will pay for a pro rata share of the depreciation of any pumps, facilities, pipes, conduits, or equipment that make up the project. This is pretty standard. In addition, Hopkinton will also be responsible for paying an annual operation maintenance and repair charge for only that water that flows beyond the turnover point into Hopkinton's water distribution system. Future capital upgrades, again, the proposal is that the share be decided pro rata. And then finally, there's a provision that allows either town to move out of the agreement. And we have, I think, added language that protects Hopkinton's investment that is described as part of the project description. So in summary, that's what this IMA does. Process-wise, the Southborough town meeting is March 25th. Mm-hmm. We are looking at the board preliminarily approving this IMA, understanding that there may be adjustments that are made, and should adjustments be made, will come back to the board for your decision. Why the vote is important now is that it sends a signal to our counterparts in Southborough who have indicated their willingness to support this project, but we need to convey that message to town meeting. In addition, we are discussing with Southborough having either Amy or John representing Hopkinton at the Southborough annual town meeting, March 25th. I think it'll be helpful for Southborough to hear directly from Hopkinton why we're making this ask.
Okay, and I just looked up the Southborough town meeting warrant today, just so I knew too. They are voting on, they would like to have a peer review independent audit of the of the proposed connection that they would like us to pay for. So they're voting on that. I think they would appropriate up to $200,000 and we would reimburse them. Is that correct?
Yes, and also to be clear to the public, Southborough is requesting that appropriation at its town meeting. Hopkinton already appropriated funds that will be applied to that appropriation if approved in Southborough. So we already have money in hand to pay for that peer review.
Great. And then I think, is this in the agreement? I think they were also asking for some additional monies for other water projects beyond the connection, what it will cost for the connection.
Yes, specifically the IMA provides for a $1 million incentive pay to reimburse Southborough for upgrades to its water system as a way of acknowledging the substantial impact of our request on their water system. We have identified 3 projects in the IMA that will qualify for this reimbursement. And with your permission, if John is still on the line, he can identify those 3 projects.
Yeah, that's good, because it's a long agreement, and I remembered us talking about it before, and then I didn't see it, but now I do see it. It's on page 134 of our packet. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if John is still on. Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, through the chair again. I apologize, working from home. I don't happen to have this in front of me, but if you do have it, if you have that page 134, it identifies the 3 separate projects that are chosen by Southborough to represent that $1 million worth of work.
Yeah, I can mention them again, John, for the sake of the public. Is page 34. What page is it, Amy?
Sorry, 134 of our packet.
Oh, of the packet. Okay.
So of the agreement, it is page 3 of the agreement.
Yeah, page 3. Okay. Okay. Here are the projects that have qualified. Number 1, install approximately 1,000 feet of 12-inch diameter water main to connect Presidential Drive and Fisher Road, including the acquisition of easements across private property, including an easement across a rail line. Project number 2, install approximately 800 feet of 8-inch diameter water main on Mount Vickery Road from Mickley Road to Vickery Hill Road. And project number 3, install approximately 200 feet of 4-inch diameter water main on Vallard Court. Only projects described in this paragraph which have been completed within, and this is the requirement we have put in, which we have proposed, completed within 5 years from the date of the execution of this agreement are eligible for the reimbursement. If the cost of the projects total less than $1 million, Southborough shall not be entitled to any additional compensation.
Okay. Okay, so do any board members have other questions? Or I think it is important to signal to the Southborough Town Meeting that we support the agreement so that they will support us.
I'm in support of the agreement as presented.
I am as well.
I am as well. Thank you for all the effort. I think this is good progress, a very critical matter that we need to address quickly. So yeah, let's go forward with our support.
I'm in agreement also.
Okay, so we need a motion to move to approve the intermunicipal water supply agreement between the towns of Hopkinton and Southborough, and to authorize the town manager to sign said agreement with any non-substantive changes made prior to the execution.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then roll call vote. Irfan
Ashuli, yes.
Mary Jo.
Joe Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Saidul.
Saidul Manan, yes.
And Mary Rhoda Bush, yes. Okay, we're getting there, guys. How much longer?
Thank you.
Okay, town manager report.
Yes. It's been a long night.
Yes, it has. Could some of it wait, or is any of it urgent?
In fact, very quickly, at your last meeting, we shared the draft Swap Creek Shared Housing Services Office Intermunicipal Agreement, another IMA. This includes the towns of Hopkinton, Medfield, Milton, Norwood, Randolph, and Sharon, creating a shared housing office. Hopkinton will be the host community. The initial term of the agreement expires June 2026. Hopkinton, as I said, as the host community, will provide management, administrative, financial, and procurement support. The participating municipalities will proportionally share the total cost of operating the housing offices. We also have issued a request for proposal to hire a consultant. Those proposals are due April 4th, and they will inform the proportional share by the different communities towards the operating funds for the coming fiscal year. So we are today asking the board to respectfully approve the IMA.
Okay, so there's another IMA that we would have to approve and authorize you to sign. Does anyone have any questions on that?
No.
You're fine. No. Mary Jo, Muriel?
No, I'm all set. Thank you so much. This represents a lot of hard work, all these agreements. I appreciate it.
Yep. Shaidu, also.
Yeah, no, I think this can move forward. This is good progress.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this position to coordinate affordable housing. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a comment on both affordable housing as well as our economic development positions. I can save it for later or interject now.
If it's brief, go for it.
Yeah, all I wanted to say is that we do need to shed more or spend more time and kind of highlighting or prioritizing those. I'm looking for maybe in one of the upcoming agenda, we put in our economic development related topic. And I would propose that we consider building an economic development council and having this position hired and get a lot of action and activities going on that front, especially because we do see the budget challenges. We do need to look at future other revenue opportunities and additional revenue opportunities, tax impact, all those combined, and initiate that conversation with our planning board, with our chambers, with all the stakeholders, zoning, us, all the stakeholders, so we can start to formulate some policy that can have a positive impact for long term with some actions, starting with hiring this position. And then same on the affordable housing, how we can provide and use, our CPC funds and affordable housing funds, work with the affordable housing, those are expiring, and have a more comprehensive plan to really improve on that front. So just a plug-in.
I was going to say, I think this position is really designed to do that second part you were asking about. So I'm looking forward to that. So maybe, Norman, at the next town manager's report, can you give us an update on we approved the job description, maybe November-ish? Maybe you could give us an update for the, what is it? The town, in the town manager's office that would work on equity, sustainability, and economic development, right?
Okay.
I can't remember the title.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the next meeting.
Thank you. Main Street Corridor Project, in addition to the update included in your packet, the two items that I want to bring to your attention. One, thanks to Sandra Ward, resident along Main Street. She raised an issue that, in fact, Dave has been working on with Mass DOT. We do agree with Sandra's suggestion that if the opportunities to get 2 road signs on 1 post, that we should settle for that. Dave is pushing hard. I think we are making progress in our discussions with Mass DOT on that issue. And then secondly, there are other, as the project is progressing towards hopefully its final leg, there are other adjustments that we're discussing with Mass DOT. Wanted to bring those to our attention. We're asking for more landscaping. We are asking for a clearer definition of where we will have some other softening aspects along the corridor, given the amount of concrete that is coming in. And I am in the process now of inviting the lead director at District 3 to come down to Hopkinton, and we'll walk them through the corridor and identify what changes we are looking for and what impact they may have. Again, there's a minor final, additions to the project that would enhance some of the issues that we have had as the project has progressed.
Okay. And I was going to say, and for the PFAS filtration system, I'm glad to see that is coming along. That's in your report. And then, I don't want to fail to mention the bollards that were installed at Cumberland Farms and Alltown Fresh. I think I'm hearing a lot of support for that in the community, and people are pleased to see those installed this week.
Yeah.
Yes, and in fact, also if John is still around, John is still around. I know it's late, but I think one of the biggest issues this weekend was the break, the water main break on West Main. It was huge. Yes. It had a significant impact on the community. I see John is still around. He can give a quick update to the board.
Okay.
Through the chair. Sorry, as I was turning into a panelist, your voice cut out, Norman. What were you looking for an update on?
Water main break on West Main.
Yeah, so we had a water main break on Wood Street, right at the intersection of Elm Street. And we had we're blessed with a dedicated staff. They came in, they worked from 5 p.m. Till very late on Saturday to get that water pipe repaired. And then they spent all day Sunday flushing hydrants to try to flush out the dirty water that was disturbed. There are still some pockets of dirty water in town. And we ask for our residents to continue to be patient as that water settles out and as it continues to flush through people's lines as they're flushing toilets and the like. But again, dedicated staff that work through the weekend to make that repair. And to the point that the chair made about the bollards, because of the storm, they couldn't finish today, but they're going to be back on Thursday to finish between the end point in front of Cumberland Farms to the flashing beacon at the end of the island under 495.
Sorry. Thank you. That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Let's see. So, and I'm sorry, I forgot to bring this up earlier when we were originally talking about the town meeting warrant. Alina and I both attended a workshop on ADA accessibility for meetings in general, but really helpful for town meeting. And that document was in our packet if people want to go through the slideshow that we saw. But one thing that I learned that we should be having, I think at the bottom of every agenda, we always say that the meeting is going to be held in an accessible place, like the town hall is accessible, but we should also have like a disclaimer about if you need additional accommodations, who to contact or how to get them. Like if someone needs captioning or something like that, that does not. Anyway, so I just thought that we should probably add that to our practice to include a little note at the bottom of each agenda. And then for town meeting, they, as Elaine noted, they suggested requesting both captioning, live captioning, and by a person, not auto captioning, and what do you call it? And sign language interpretation, which we did have last year too. So I think that would be great if we could order those, or you have to reserve them in advance, obviously. What else? I think I had some other thoughts on that too. It was a really interesting workshop, but maybe we'll be discussing the town meeting warrant at future meetings anyway, right? Maybe we could just save that for next time. Okay, then I think, go ahead.
If I may, through the chair, we still need a motion on the shared housing office IMA.
Oh, I thought we did that. Okay.
We didn't vote on it.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the swap SWAD Trek Shared Housing Service Intermunicipal Agreement to authorize the town manager to sign said agreement with any non-substantive changes prior to the execution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Okay, roll call vote.
Rafanos Rulli, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Hero Kramer, yes.
Heidelman, yes.
Mira Bush, yes. Okay. So that's the last thing I think we had to vote on. Besides adjournment, we could do liaison reports and future agenda items, or we could save those for next time.
Save them for next time.
Okay, let's save those for next time, or email staff if necessary. Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, sorry, Amy, sorry.
One more thing, no.
If I may, I love late meetings. I'm just kidding. Invitations. The select board had expressed any interest recently in touring the E.L. Harvey facility. Thankfully, the Sustainable Green Committee had also made a similar arrangement, and E.L. Harvey has agreed to host the Sustainable Green Committee on March 20th at 3 p.m. to tour the facility.
Next week? Okay.
Yes. So I just wanted to share that with the board right now, and then we'll ask Fasuda to send an email to the board as an invite tomorrow morning.
Okay, so that'd be great if some of us can join too.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Euro Kramer, yes.
For finance, really, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Okay, did Shidul say yes?
I did, yeah. Shahidul Manan,
Okay,
yeah.
Amy Rodovish, yes. Okay, great. All right.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.